Welcome to the Scituate Planning Board meeting, Thursday, February 24th, 2022, in the Select Board hearing room. We are on Zoom as well as we are in person. So if you want to join us, come on in. If you want to Zoom, follow the directions on our website. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, the first item on the agenda is a site plan waiver for 146 Front Street, 11 Millwall Plaza, the Salt Society. Is Kara Conda coming? Oh, she's here. Okay, great.
I'm here.
Hi. All right.
How's it going?
It's going. All right, Kara, tell us what you're up to, please.
I apologize, it's a little bit dark. It's my son's 10th birthday, so I'm just dipping out to help on this call. I'm literally just trying to, the tenant next door to Salt Society is moving out, and so I have the opportunity to go into her space because it's connected. I'm currently utilizing 55 out of my 66 seats. I'm looking to get 20 seats next door, which really, is 10 seats, given that I'm underutilizing what's going on. I spoke with Bob Vogel today in the building department. There was some questions about the bathrooms. He says we would be in compliance. So I'm just trying to figure out how this is all going to work.
Okay. Karen, do you have anything?
Bathrooms aren't part of the planning board's purview, so that'll come when you go to get your building permit. The bathroom situation will be reviewed by the building commissioner then.
Right.
So it's not up to us. All right, comments from the board. Got it? Rebecca? Steve?
No comment.
Ben?
No, I think that's great that a successful business is able to expand into more space. I don't see any issues with the site plan itself, and would be amenable to granting the waiver. The one thing I saw is that you're also expanding the sidewalk use outdoors. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was already approved.
Sure. So on that topic, I don't know how much that falls in our lap at this point, but just to think, I don't think you guys are a bad offender, but as somebody that walks through the harbor a lot with a double stroller and with a lot of kids and things, sometimes I've noticed the sidewalks get a little bit cluttered and can be to the point that I've actually been unable to pass by. At times I had to go on the road with kids and stuff, so it's just something to be mindful of, but I have no problem with using the sidewalk, obviously.
Well, one of the things that I was going to do is since I most recently just got the permanent, approval for that, is I was going to put in some bollards, that are kind of stationary, so it's not like, someone's helping themselves to moving it. Like say they have a stroller at the table and then they're just moving all the stuff. If I do something that's more affixed.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Yeah, I'm just saying it's something to be mindful of as we all share the space down there.
For sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bob?
I think the plan looks good.
All right, I have no comment. So,
Public comment?
no public. Any public that want to comment? All right.
Sure. I think it's a great thing. They have a great business down there, and whatever you can do to improve that for them is awesome.
Thank you.
I just want to
I
say
appreciate
that
it.
the outdoor seating, they don't need parking for the outdoor seating. That's what your zoning bylaw says.
Right, okay, all right. At some point, maybe the merchants on Front Street ought to seriously think about making Front Street one way for the summer.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of conversations with other business owners just going through this process, and I think we're gonna come to a meeting of the minds and sit down and propose a plan for, the town to kind of help with some of the infrastructure issues with parking and stuff like that. So, it's something that, obviously don't want to put the cart before the horse, but that we might want to talk about.
I think you should talk about it.
Yeah.
I really do. Because once upon a time, a long, long time ago, before you were born, It was suggested that it become one-way a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at other, towns and stuff, it's usually typical, you know what I mean?
I do. All right, Karen, thank
So-
you. We're all set. I move that the planning board finds the proposed site work or building work is minor in nature because there appears to be adequate parking on Front Street and in the Mill Wharf parking lot and the nearby public parking lot in Cole Parkway, and no site work is proposed. To grant the site plan waiver for Kara Torndorf of Salt Society at 146 Front Street, 11 Mill Wharf Plaza, to expand into the adjacent 1,100 square foot space with Salt Society with the following conditions. 1, construction shall comply with the improvements submitted with the application. 2, approval is contingent upon all local approvals being obtained from the town of Scituate, particularly approval of the Board of Health and Building Inspector or Inspectional Services Department. 3, trash shall be handled in covered sealed containers in an enclosed fenced area and emptied at least once daily or more frequently if necessary, or otherwise as directed by the Board of Health. 4, indoor seating is limited to 86. 5, any further expansion of the use applied for must come back to the planning board for approval. 6, it is recommended that the sewer line be cleaned and inspected prior to occupancy of the new space.
Second.
Is there further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, guys, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, take care.
That's that.
Move it right along.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Well, our next item is at 7 o'clock, which is 46 Holland Street, so we have to wait.
It's a public meeting, but I would suggest you wait a little bit because I had a call from an abutter today
Okay.
who indicated whether to be here or on Zoom.
Yes.
It wasn't the name of the woman who called. So maybe we could do some of the minutes and
Okay.
some of that stuff first and see if, then we can ask if that's, but that's not the name of the woman who called.
Okay, so we'll go to minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from January 27, 2022.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Accounting.
I move to approve the requisition of $1,170 to Chesia Consulting for peer review services for 533 Country Way, for $864.50 to Horsley Witten for peer review services at Seaside at Scituate, for $2,250 to Merrill Corp. for stormwater peer review services at 176 Cadwood Road, for $450 to Merrill Corp. for peer review services at the residence at Driftwood Place through MBTA, for $1,575 to Merrill Corp. for peer review services at the residence at Driftwood Place through /MBTA, for $2,250 to Merrill Corp. for stormwater peer review services at 23 Millgate Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Liaison reports. Okay, CPC met briefly last night. The land, Machini's land on Hollitt Street, which abuts the Purple Dinosaur, it's just over 2 acres of land. CPC added some money to it. We thought that it was coming in at 37.5, when in fact the appraisal is 41,000. So CPC is purchasing that piece of property contingent upon town meeting for that property, which will be a soccer field or a ball field or whatever. Then there was discussion about First Cliff and that property. There is a purchase and sale agreement. There is one individual that may be opting out, but somehow they're going to circle around all of that. And then finally, on the Gulf River property, the Mordecai Lincoln, that will go before town meeting. We voted last night to up it from, $900,000 was appropriated a year ago, but the sellers want another $400,000. So it was appraised at $1.5 million. So it's still under the appraisal. So there will be a signed purchase and sale agreement before town meeting. They're in the process of looking at, they're having a home inspection and then the septic, Title V, and to see who's liable for that. So there you have it. That's what transpired last evening.
What is the property on First Cliff?
That is,
Across from the residential workplace and all that, and somebody from the other side. The
it's
harbor.
near Sunset Road. It's just a whole, it connects down around. When you sit at the Mill Wharf and you look across, that's what you're looking at. The old McDonald property. That's what that is. E-I-E-I-O. Okay, planning and development report.
The selectmen are meeting on 3/1, and there's going to be a presentation on foreshore protection and coastal issues. So people may be interested in viewing that.
Is it virtual or is it in person?
I believe it's in person. I haven't seen the agenda yet.
All right.
I don't know if it's a hybrid or not, but I haven't seen the agenda.
What date did you get?
Send it
On
to me
Tuesday,
today.
3/1.
Tuesday.
So just so you know that, I mean, that kind of, it's going to be a whole big overview of some of the big issues on the coast and the projects. Planning has been invited back to advisory on 3/3, so that's next Thursday, so Ann, Patty, and I will attend that meeting virtually because they want to be going over the warrant articles. I had a request in this week, 4852 New Driftway. They want to slightly rearrange the handicap parking space in the rear. They got a grant for the electric vehicle charging station, and they're required to have handicap parking by the electrical vehicle station. I think it's kind of an insignificant change. They're not losing any parking space. I told them they couldn't lose any parking spaces, and they can't restripe them to make them narrower. So the spaces are still 9 by 18, and they're not losing any spaces. They're ending up putting, it's a slight rearrangement in the back because they have a big mechanical box and the charging station stuff. But it seems like that's a win-win for everybody. They won't get the grant if they can't provide the handicap space.
Then they should provide it.
So, I propose that it's an insignificant field change.
Do you need a vote on that? Or can you just say, do it?
You can just say do it.
Fine with me.
Do it.
Our friends at Toll Brothers have been acting up again.
What else is new?
They're getting fines for last Friday's silty water leaving the site, At 3 years into a project, you wouldn't expect they'd have silty water going off-site, but, so be it.
Where was that located generally on?
Where Ermine is?
Yeah.
Thelma and Ermine. There was silty water going off there. There was silty water going into the whole drainage system down at Wendy and Brand Boulevard. You know, no, just, no stabilized construction area.
Right.
Or, it's just didn't extend far enough. And the rain intensity was pretty intense. And they also have roof drainage pipes going right into Norwell Terrace, which Amy and I told them, no, you cannot do that, even though Norwell Terrace is private property.
It's not their property, is it?
Yes, it is their property, but it still ultimately sends water down onto 10th Avenue. And so, we had told them, yes, you can have your roof drains, but keep it on your site. So that's going to be a perpetual battle to fight.
How close are they, do you think, for wrapping it up? Another year or two?
I think they're thinking by the end of the year. All the building permits have been
Wow.
been granted.
And they had thought 5 years.
Well, they're moving along at a pretty good clip. I haven't checked the sales chart recently, but quite a few of the units have sold.
And some of them are reselling.
Some of them are reselling, is correct.
Considering that they wanted to sell them at 700,000 and they're starting at $1 million.
And the condos, not the condos, the duplexes are all in excess of $1 million and change. All of them.
So there's considerable, there's a fair amount of site work left to do when you consider that the basins don't work because they were all silted up during construction, but they're waiting to the end to fix them because they only want to do it once now. One of them was never right anyways because that was used as the sump for the whole construction. But that's, they're going to have to do testing in all the basins and to determine how much material has to come out and what has to go back in.
Okay.
And they can only use, per your decision, a skid steer for that work so that the bottom of the basin does not get overly compacted. But they're moving right along. The gas station is moving right along. Drew Company is moving along. 18 Ford Place hopes to be closing on their first unit on April 1st.
Wow.
So things are, the projects are moving along. The residential compound development off of Country Way, those houses are,
All sold.
yeah.
They are? All 5 of them are sold? You can-
Under agreement.
Under agreement. Do we have a landscape plan for that project, I hope?
Just what was submitted
The
with
original
the-
one. But as part of when they came back to present the individual lot plans, we had talked about they were gonna add trees and do all this, so.
There was nothing substantial left in the buffer. And we knew that was going to be the case because of the vegetation there. And, so it looks pretty barren out there in some spots. And, they'll have to, they claim that they're going to do some nice landscaping, and that's what it's going to take to sell the places.
But if they're already under agreement,
Well, they still have to do what's required per your
Right.
planning board decision, and we required some buffering, and so that will have to go in. Curtis Estates is moving along as well. I informed Mr. Gillespie today that the condition of the stone wall at the front of the property was not acceptable, and he said, oh, that was just, interim. They're going to fix it in the springtime. And I informed him that the septic system has to be reseeded with the appropriate seed mix. But they're moving along on closing, a lot of them. The guy doing the permeable paving is doing a very, very, very good job. He's very good about calling for the inspections, and, he's doing it right.
okay. Have they sold all their units?
I don't know. I don't keep track of that.
All of those are sold, yeah. Most of them, but not all.
I don't keep track of those.
All right.
I saw that they started the clearing at Man Hill too.
Yes, that's been cleared since, right
Couple
after
weeks,
the,
yeah.
around Christmas time, right after the new year. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I went out there in the first of the year, and we approved the erosion control and the, stabilized construction entrance and the clearing. I mean, I was told today that it's all cleared. I did ask them to try to save one nice holly. It was a small one, and it looked like it was in an area that would be in their landscape area, but I have not been out to check that,
One of the conditions that they had to do something within 30 days or end up coming back, or 15 days, did they do what we wanted them to do? Had to do with something, it was important, which I can't remember.
At Man
That's how
Hill?
important it was, what?
At Man Hill?
Yeah, on Man Hill.
Water testing? Groundwater testing?
Something.
I'll check tomorrow on the conditions, but I don't remember, anything.
Okay,
I don't remember anything. I will double check.
all right. Is there anything else?
No, we're working on, for next time, you're going to have 7 New Driftway will be coming in. They're doing a change in concept, so all they're gonna do is present a concept. They're not doing engineered drawings until after the board sees the concept. You have 81 Norwell Ave. You'll be voting on the recommendations to town meeting, and I would like to discuss the MBTA communities, because I am on the docket on the Selectmen's agenda on the 15th of March. Part of the qualifications for 2022 was you have to fill out this online form, which basically says, who's in charge in your community, and what do you think you have for districts for the units. And you have to have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen to present the whole scenario guidelines. And that qualifies you in 2022 to be able to apply for One Stop for Growth grants and Housing Choice Initiative grants, Mass Works grants, and some other grant. But the way I read the information is that Scituate won't have to comply until the end of 2024.
That is a good thing.
But, I suspect that we're gonna have to do another zoning change. So, the sooner we talk about it, the better, so that we can start planning for it down the pike.
Now, we changed North Situate, or was it Greenbush, from 13 to 15?
We have one area in North Scituate, the outer village, which is approximately 20 acres without the MBTA parking lot. That's 15 units per acre by right, 24 by special permit. The state is looking for 15 units per acre by right.
How many?
15.
Right.
Right, and then we have one area in Greenbush that's also 16 units per right, 36 by special permit. I think that's the NDTV district. So we do have some areas that already meet the requirements, but, when we talk about it, they want 50 acres, and they want the ability to get, for us, approximately 1,200 units. So you don't actually have to build them, you have to zone for them. You don't actually have to have the infrastructure, you just have to zone. So, that's why we wanted to have another conversation about that, and I'd rather have a conversation with the planning board before I present to the board of, the select board.
I thought that there was, by right, 13 in one area in Greenbush that we wanted to change to 15.
All of in North Scituate and in Greenbush, the ones that are by right are 12 units. 12 units per acre, 24 by special permit. So is it potentially that big of a deal to go from 12 to 15? Probably not. So, I mean, I think Situate's a little bit ahead of the curve by doing the VCN zoning, because that is geared towards multifamily, mixed use to bring, vibrant communities for redevelopment. So I think we're nearly there, but not quite.
Well, I think you're right, though, Karen. We are ahead of the curve. We really are.
We're ahead of some towns in this matter, but, we need to discuss it to get everybody's thoughts on what you're thinking. So I'm going to put it on next week, March 10th agenda for discussion.
Okay, great. All right, we have 4 minutes.
So it's a public meeting, it's
All
not
right,
a
then
public
we'll
hearing.
go for it. Let's go for it.
Hearing.
All right, we have a public meeting for a site plan administrative review for common driveway at 46 Hollis Street.
You know what, that might not be the best place for the easel, Greg.
Okay, where would you like it?
Why don't you put it on this side, because then the audience can see it better, and people who are on the Zoom can see it as well, sorry.
1,200 units, I gotta get to work, man.
Yeah, okay. Go for it. All right.
Great, thank you. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing my client and property owner, Chris and Barbara Horn. This is a common driveway application at their property located at 46 Hollis Street. Referring you to the plan.
All right.
Hollis Street is on the right-hand side. The property is divided into 2 lots, Lot 1 being a retreat lot or 50-foot frontage lot, Lot 2 being the existing home at number 46. What we've applied for is the common driveway. The common driveway would access Hollis Street at this location, and then would split with an extension of the driveway going back to a new home proposed on Lot 1 in the future. Lot 2, which is the existing house, would be serviced by the common driveway. This is the location where the existing driveway and existing curb cut already are on Hollis Street. We're essentially utilizing that existing location. It's already a paved location, significantly devoid of vegetation. But what you will see is that we've prepared this plan in compliance with Section 720, which is the common driveway provisions of your bylaw. Specifically, the common driveway provisions of 720.7 are your design standards A through L. We comply with all of those requirements. To summarize them quickly, it specifies a minimum width of the driveway being 16 feet wide with a paved width. It specifies that the driveway be located within an easement. We've specifically outlined the easement area on the plans and included that. It specifies requirements with AASHTO standards for intersection site distances, which we've provided the site distance triangle along Hollis Street, documenting compliance with that. Specifies that you have to identify any trees that are to be removed. We are proposing to remove 1 tree. That tree is right here. It's a 12-inch pine or evergreen tree that will be coming down. Specifies that you need an emergency vehicle turnaround. You'll see that we've proposed a hammerhead 20 by 30 feet in area right there as our emergency vehicle turnaround. I believe you have in your correspondence a letter from the deputy fire chief regarding that turnaround with his acceptance of that location. And so those items A through L we've documented on the bottom corner of the plan here. Your requirements also specify that common driveways cannot exceed 1,000 feet in length and that they cannot service more than 3 lots. This driveway here, as you see it, is less than 1,000 feet. This driveway is 82 feet measured from the property line, or 110 feet measured from the center line of Hullet Street, and only accesses 2 lots. There was a note placed on the plan, General Note 5, which references the common driveway, and that would be a note as well added to the deeds for each property. Your bylaw specifies section 770, which is the site plan review. That's the standard of review that's applied on a common driveway application. We believe we comply with the standards of review. The purpose and intent of a common driveway application, there are 3 of them that are specified in your bylaw. To reduce access points onto roads, which we feel we achieve by proposing 1 access point as opposed to 2 access points. Secondly, to protect wetland in sensitive areas. There are no wetlands on this property. There are no sensitive areas as far as ecological resources on the property. But by proposing 1 common driveway as opposed to 2 separate driveways, it certainly results in less land disturbance and vegetation disturbance. And then item number 3 identified as the purpose is to protect the rural atmosphere of Scituate. There are other common driveways on Hullet Street. We believe common driveways add to the rural character of the community by reducing the amount of curb cuts, reducing impacts to stone walls or scenic vistas along the roadway. We've cited this in the location where the existing driveway is, specifically to reduce any further impacts to the rural character of the town. I turn it over to you.
Okay. All right, I've sat through a lot of common driveway applications, and I feel very strongly that this is incomplete. You have not given us any information about what the second lot will be. I have a real problem with the 2 parking spaces that are going to be for whatever is going to come down the road, right in front of the existing garage. And the garage goes in to the left of these 2 parking spaces. I would feel far more comfortable with this if you had extended the common driveway onto Lot 2, and that's where your turnaround was, rather than in front of this house. I mean, it's all smushed together, and your driveway is only 2 feet from the lot line. I mean, you're right on top of the next property. As far as I'm concerned, maybe it complies, maybe it does, but it's not wonderful. It isn't. There's too much missing here. I know you get your Section 6 finding. I'm well aware of that. And the Zoning Board of Appeals gave it to you, but you had to get the approval of the common driveway from the planning board in order for this to go forward. Otherwise, you've created a non-conforming lot. So, I just have a problem with this, and I'll leave it at that. Anybody on the board, before I turn it over to Karen?
I'd like to hear from Karen.
So because this didn't have any drainage, I did not hire a consulting engineer on this. So I went through all the requirements myself, and that's where I wrote you the memo. I mean, I think they should add the tree line for the adjacent property. I question if there's not going to be a puddle at the end of the driveway, because everything's cross-pitched down to the end of the driveway. You know, the deputy fire chief's memo said that it complies for now, but will need to be revisited when the second house goes in. Well, isn't the purpose of the common driveway to have the turnaround so that both houses can be serviced? I really question that. They say that there's no change in paving out there. There's less paving. it's not likely that the septic system is in the common driveway. The utilities are being shown on the other side of the property, not in the common driveway. I don't know if the board feels that the common driveway should be screened. The site distance, it says it complies for this posted speed limit. The lot width isn't shown, and they want the lot width to be measured parallel to the common driveway so that they can record the Form A. Under the requirements of 770.6, I think it meets the requirements of protecting adjoining premises against detrimental and offensive methods of using the site, traffic safety and ease of access at street grades. They say there's adequate site distance. Safety and adequacy of driveway layout, pedestrian safety. Can an emergency vehicle turn from both ways into the driveway? There's no hydrant shown, so I don't know that you can say it is adequacy for firefighting and distribution of water supply. Again, I question if there'll be a puddle at the end of the driveway. The site is not in the Water Resource Protection District, so that's not applicable. I would say that it minimizes cut and fill because it's using the existing driveway. I'd say it minimizes obstruction of scenic views. Well, it's not applicable. I'm not sure the parking areas are buffered. Outdoor, I'm going to assume outdoor lighting's probably minimized. And I'm going to say safe and convenient pedestrian access is not applicable. So that was my brief summary of the plan.
I still feel very strongly it is an incomplete application. You can disagree with me all you want, and that's fine. It's
I don't know if
incomplete.
a board member wants to comment.
I am going to open it up. Patty?
Nothing right now.
Rebecca?
Yeah, so this is exactly where the driveway was before, you're just extending it or you're moving it off?
We're widening it. Right now, the driveway is at 12 feet, plus or minus. We're bringing it up to 16 feet in width. The area where the emergency turnaround is largely developed with stone patio area, or brick patio areas that would be paved with new driveway location. There is pavement along the side of the garage, the southern side of the garage, that would be removed as part of this application. You know, ultimately on Lot 1, there will be a single-family home there. That's what this zoning district allows, and that's what's said on the plan, that there'll be a single-family home. We do not have the size of that house. We do not have the dimensions of that house at this point in time. We don't feel that that is necessary in reviewing a common driveway application. We think the use of the lot certainly needs to be reviewed, which is a single-family home. We can state that, but we don't have the exact dimensions of the house structure. We don't see the nexus between those two.
Well, I disagree with you. I respectfully disagree. I have been on and off this board for a long time, and this is the first time in my memory that I have seen a common driveway like this. And I really have a problem with it. So, Ben, are you done?
I was just going to ask one more question.
Sure.
When you're going out 4 feet, which direction are you going into? Are you closer to that neighbor's house or is...
Goes to the right as you pull in. Right now, the existing driveway is right up to the lot line, 0 feet, and encroaches.
It's already 2 feet from there.
Exactly, so we're bringing
You're
it
moving closer to the neighbors.
no closer to the neighbors.
Just going out to the more towards the house.
Correct.
All right, Ben?
As far as, I think this hits the mark in terms of knowing that this has 50-foot frontage approval, it's a developable lot for single-family use. I think this meets the purpose and intent of the common driveway bylaw by minimizing, minimizing disturbance, paved area, having one less curb cut on a kind of a road where people speed. But I guess my concerns are currently the turnaround area where it's located. I do have concerns about that potentially being used for parking, thus negating its use as a turnaround for emergency apparatus if it needs to be. Obviously, that's something that could be conditioned, but it just seems a little funky to me. It seems more like a driveway turnaround for the residents rather than a turnaround for a common driveway, emergency vehicle access. And then the other thing, just to echo kind of what Ann's saying, I'm also having a little hard time with this plan just because it seems largely conceptual in nature, because it's really not showing a definitive plan for the remainder of this common driveway. To play devil's advocate, it would be highly unlikely that you would draw a spiral, but one of the things is that can't be 1,000 feet, right? It has to be less than 1,000 feet. What if this lot was much bigger? And could we potentially be setting a precedent by not showing a complete driveway on the plan, that in the future, lots that could have a driveway over 1,000 feet could now potentially show something that's more conceptual and not definitive, and that kind of, I don't like how that leaves me feeling, should this be approved. That's kind of all I have for now. It just kind of, it's creating a conflict within me as somebody that in my line of work looks at plans and has to implement them. It seems very conceptual and not definitive.
So the simple answer to that is the common driveway is where both properties access and what both properties have rights to access over, and that specifically stops at the end of the easement. The driveway that goes back to Lot 1, ultimately, whether it's 1,000 feet long, 100 feet long, 5,000 feet long, doesn't matter because it's not a common driveway. There's no limit in the town of Scituate on a single-family home driveway length. What is common, however, is the first 80-something feet, which is identified here. It's identified in the field as being common in that location. It's identified in the easement. So the driveway beyond that, going out to Lot 1, there is no maximum length on that. It's just the common driveway portion at the front before the two driveways split.
And so how does the turnaround support Lot 1?
How is it, what?
How does it support Lot 1?
How does
the emergency vehicle turn around in Lot 1?
On the common driveway bylaw itself, under section 720.7J, refers to turnarounds for emergency vehicles shall be provided with a minimum length of 20 feet by 30 feet in locations approved by the fire chief. Okay? Fire chief has approved the turnaround. Okay? It's not, the turnaround's not approved by this board, it's approved by the fire department. Okay, wait, let me continue, if I can. Okay? And I'm going to try and address all the issues that have come up. I was hoping I might hear something from Bob over there if he has a comment. And if you want, we can go one by one on all the comments that the board made, if that's the right way. But the fire chief, deputy fire chief, Mr. Elliott, had looked at this and didn't have a problem with the location of the turnaround. Karen had brought up a question as to whether the fire truck could enter coming from both directions on Hollitt Street on this. And I actually met with the new acting chief, because Mr. Elliott retired Tuesday night when he walked out the door. So he probably won't be commenting on this anymore. And we will have to go back to him to answer the question, but what he brought up was there is a hydrant located at the intersection of Sedgwick Drive, just north of Sedgwick Drive. It's within 300 feet of the new dwelling that's going to come in, so he had no problem as far as the water was concerned getting into the site. He said that the fire truck would be able to access as long as the driveway is 16 feet wide in both directions on Hollitt Street. And he said that we went through Al's letter, and in Al's letter, he's referring to the common driveway, but in the letter it says when access goes to the second lot, the fire department will look at it. And it is my understanding as of my meeting today that as long as that driveway, the single driveway going into that house, is 12 feet wide, they won't have a problem with that. But you'll get that in writing from the new gentleman that's reviewing the fire department issues. But again, if they want to have another comment, if I can, I'll try and address that. I would like to go back and cover the ones that you've already gone over.
Bob, do you have something you'd like to say?
No, I don't have an issue with it now. I know it's not a complete plan, but then we also don't have a plan for what's being built on Lot 1. So as far as coming to the board with a plan saying, we would eventually in the future like to build on lot 1, and this is where we'd like to put the driveway. If the fire chief is, okay with the driveway proposal for lot 2 to actually be put in place
They won't
with the
come back.
future option on,
They won't come back to us to ask that.
They won't. This is it.
well, when you build on lot 1, they,
This is it. This is
That
it.
happens at the building permit level. What may happen is, if this driveway goes in, depending upon the size of the house, and it's not gonna be a monster, this is actually Mr. Horn who lives in the front, who is in the room, wants to build a smaller house for himself to go out in the back, and then ultimately sell the front house, I believe, to his daughter. So it is a family situation at this point, but that shouldn't be the reason why you vote for or against it, but that's the intent right now.
okay.
Patty? Do you have anything else?
No,
All
if the fire chief is okay with the turnaround for emergency vehicles, I wouldn't want to back an ambulance up.
Sound like
Wait a minute, he didn't say, he said he was okay for now, but wants to
Now.
reevaluate when lot 1 comes in.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was
so,
thinking,
I
'cause
mean, he
there'll be
didn't-
another bite at the apple on
Right,
this.
no,
and
but
he'll-
not by us.
But not by us.
Okay.
Not by us.
I mean, I will talk to Captain Donovan I will talk to him next week. He's
Yeah.
the one who's taking over for Deputy Elliott.
Let's see if we can get them just to be more definitive one way or the other.
Okay?
I mean, it doesn't help us to say we'll look at it later again.
Nope.
I don't think it helps you either.
It's,
Right.
and again, what you gotta understand is, they've reviewed the driveway itself. What he's gonna look at is the separate driveway that's going in to lot 2 to make sure that they'll be able to get the truck further up the individual driveway. He's not revisiting the common portion of the driveway. So there's a little disconnect there. I think he's gonna verify that for you when he looks at it again. But they won't get a building permit if they don't have fire access in there.
Yep.
So there's an easement on there that shows where the 12-foot driveway is gonna go. It could meander a little bit in there. Chris could potentially decide that he wants to relocate that a little bit, but at that point in time, the fire department will determine that they can or can't get into that portion of it. But the common driveway itself has been reviewed, and they have no problem with that turnaround.
Karen?
I just have one more comment that I think the board should consider. Well, this driveway goes for a lot of the portion on the front lot. Why isn't the rest of that common? Because the owner can still use the driveway further on his own property. So why is it just that the common driveway stops at 85 feet?
I don't understand that either, and I don't understand why this driveway is not extended as a common driveway with a turnaround, because you're going to have a fire truck go all the way up to the second house, and then they're going to have to back all the way down and turn around. Doesn't quite pass the straight face test.
If the fire chief needs a turnaround up there and won't issue a building permit, they'll tell us to put a turnaround up at the end. A single turnaround for the truck.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's what I was thinking, but I'm not gonna be the one backing up the fire engine, so if it's the fire chief's like, we'll back it
But
up.
if this is an incomplete submission, Patty, do you have anything you want to say?
For Mr. Pritchard.
Go ahead. Steve?
Well, I just think we need to get clarity from the fire chief, right? 'Cause it sounds like
I will, I mean,
he left it kind of open-ended, so let's just get clarity on it. What happens at the end of the common driveway? Is there a permanent easement created there?
Yes, there is. There's a,
For lot 1?
Yes, there is.
Is that created as part of this?
no, that's a separate easement because it's not common at that point. It's exclusive rights for Lot 1 to access a driveway there.
Well, it's not really common.
It's common up to that point,
No,
and we,
there's nobody doing lot 1, so it's not really common. Right, it's just a single driveway.
Correct. That's why it's not a common driveway where it shows off the end of the turnaround. The reason it's that long is because the turnaround...
I mean, you haven't provided for the use of the common driveway by lot 1.
The easement,
Yes, we have.
The easement for the remainder of the access into Lot 1 is shown on the plan with the 2 dotted lines.
That's what I asked. You said
So
no.
if you would like to see...
So the easement's created, that's all I
Yeah,
asked.
the
Okay, you guys
easement will
said
definitely
no,
be
that's
created,
why I asked.
absolutely.
Okay.
But if you would like to see a 12-foot...
No, I just want to know
Okay.
that there's access to
Okay,
lot
yes,
1.
absolutely. And to Ann's question that Lot 2 could still use that, if you want to condition it so that the use for Lot 2 ends at the end of the common driveway and it's an exclusive use easement for Lot 1 to use the rest of the driveway, we'll accept that as a condition with no problem at all. So the common driveway stops at the length that we say it stops at. That's a very simple condition to put in, not a problem at all.
And is there like a maintenance plan that's been filed?
There's a common driveway agreement that's actually draft form, because if we had a 3-lot common driveway, we're required to file that when we file for the 3-lot common driveway, because that's a special permit. If you do a 2-lot common driveway less than 500 feet long, we don't have to put that in when we first apply for it, but we already have. So there's some things that Karen and I had chatted about. She wants to make a few changes to add some stuff into the common driveway agreement. And we have no problem with that. We don't know exactly what it is yet.
Did you finish the copy of that?
Yeah.
It was, I thought I sent it in the stuff.
I missed it.
I mean, what I wanted to add in the common driveway agreement is I wanted to add, there'll be no parking in the common driveway.
Right.
And I wanted to add something about the common driveway easement just can't be changed without approval of the planning board.
Correct.
So, I mean, some of the same stuff that you put in all your common driveway agreements. I will resend the common drive.
No, I must have just missed it. I apologize.
And we have no problem with that. That's fine. Once the common driveway portion of the easement is done, we understand that can't be changed unless you come back in again. And as far as the 2 parking spaces in front of the garage go there, the paving is going to cover that whole area when it goes in, and that's accounted for in the calculations that Greg did when it's still under what's there right now, as far as the paving is concerned, the impervious area is concerned. So that area, even though the fire truck turnaround says it's 20 by 30, is going to be more of a parking area. So they have plenty of room to work there. In other words, they're not going to stripe out what's there, but there is room to be able to park the cars, and there is a condition that, like she said, we're going to accept that says that they can't park on the common driveway portion of the lot. So it's not, that's a routine thing. Yes. So, if I can back it up a little bit, he does have what he needs to be able to park outside for the existing house on Lot 2. There is, as Rebecca said, there is a setback from the property with the driveway now. It's not right on the property line, it's just being moved back a little bit. Certainly we can add the tree line next to the south side between the neighbor's property and this. That's a simple thing to do. Turnaround area has been approved. The septic system for Lot 2, while the bylaw does state that you can't have major components of a septic system or a leaching field under a common driveway, at the end of that it says without a Board of Health approval. So there is nothing under the driveway now. The septic system location is approximate, and you can see it on the frontage of the 50-foot. It's within a few feet of where that is. The Lot 2 is going to get a new septic system. It's already been perked, and it's in the back side of the lot, basically where it says Lot 2, 20,000 feet upland. So there will be a whole new system. There's nothing under the common driveway itself. You're going to notice that the water and the electric for the newly created Lot 1 is actually coming across a lawn area because there's nothing there. It's all wide open. It doesn't have to be located under the common driveway. And in this particular case, it doesn't make sense to dig a 4-foot deep trench under the existing driveway when we can actually put it in the lawn area. There would be room to put it there if they had to go there, but it makes more sense to put it in the lawn area across the frontage on that lot. And you made the comment that we received a Section 6 finding. This was not a Section 6 finding. This was a 610 2B 50-foot special permit lot from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So nothing is made non-conforming. If you're referring to the lot width on Lot 2, it's not on record yet. You guys are actually holding the plan in the town hall until the common driveway is approved. And Karen made the comment that you can't see the lot width for Lot 2. And if it's measured parallel with the driveway, on one side of the lot, the plan says it's 152 feet on the north side. On the south side, it says it's 191. The lot width requirement is 125 feet. I think it's pretty simple to see that we have over 125 feet of width measured in that direction. So I think we have that covered. If you would like us to show you exactly at the house what the dimension is, that can be added to the plan. Leave it up to the board. If you want to see it, we can add it, but it's clearly over 125 feet. So I think that we cover that as well. Like I say, we'll add the hydrant to the plan, and
Where is that hydrant?
the hydrant is at the intersection of Sedgwick Drive. It's just on the north side of Sedgwick Drive. Okay, and that can be added to the plan. Really, some of the reason why we're in here tonight, Leanne, you said it's not a complete plan. You're absolutely right. And we know that it's not a complete plan. But as we go through these common driveways, there's certain things that we need to come to the board to see if the board wants us to add these things that are in that section 770, because it's our belief that you can vote on the common driveway as an administrative review, that it does meet all the requirements, but if you want more information on the plan, you go through those items and say, yes, we need to see this, we don't need to see that. To show grading 300 feet away, from where this common driveway is going to be on abutting properties, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily need to be there to vote on the common driveway itself. So it's those items, and that's the reason we're here tonight, is to find out if any more of those items in 770 you would like to see on the plan. And we're glad to add the ones that you would like to see on the plan. So again, I apologize if you thought this was 100%. You can't do that unless we put everything on the plan. And of course, that's going to cost the Horns a tremendous amount of money. And if the board doesn't need to see those things, there's no reason to have those on the plan. So that's why we're here tonight. Hopefully you can give us some direction so we can complete the plan and come back. And we are prepared to continue the extension on this. We've already talked to Karen about that, and it's not a problem at all.
Can you also address the comment that Karen made about the puddling, the drainage?
Sure, I'll leave that up to Greg because it's a drainage issue, and I don't know the drainage.
So right now, the way that the existing driveway is pitched, it's pitched in a southeasterly direction. It pitches away from the existing house toward the neighbor and then toward Hollett Street. The runoff ultimately makes its way onto Hollett Street. What we're proposing to do is to put a cross pitch on the new driveway. You'll see that there's approximately a 2% pitch, which is approximately 4 inches from one side to the other on the driveway. And we're going to take the driveway and pitch it toward our property.
So to the north?
Yes, so it will now pitch to the north and then out to Hollett Street. I can certainly add some additional spot grades there. I don't see any chance that a puddle would be created out at that intersection. I'll provide additional detail on that. I'd be glad to.
And when you build this common driveway, since it's existing, you're still going to take all the top off and regrade it and
Yep.
all that, right?
Yep.
Correct.
It has to get
There's-
taken down to meet the requirements in the bylaw.
Anyway, so-
And there is a cross-section on the driveway in the top right-hand corner, which says how it has to be constructed. And that's why we didn't want to put the water under it, because there's no sense to dig it down 4 feet and have a chance that that's not going to get compacted the right way, where we have the ability to do it outside the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, Ann,
Yeah.
at this point, you should probably take public comment.
We do have public
All right.
comment, so if you'd like, I can do that for you.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, 52 Hollett Street, you should be unmuted and be able to ask your question. If you can please identify yourself with a name and address, that would be much appreciated.
Hi, my name is Julie Straley, and I do live at 231 Levitt Street in Hingham, but I'm here with my parents, Dennis and Phoebe Moran, who live at 52 Hollett Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So, my parents have been here living at this house since 1974, and they have concerns about this plan that it increases traffic right next to their property and inappropriately diminishes their property. This common driveway plan turns the house into an undesirable corner lot with less privacy than they have now. What is proposed is referred to as a common driveway, but it really is a street. Look at where the house number for the back lot, lot number 1, is. We're concerned about the emergency vehicle turnaround. All that it's going to turn into is an unsafe parking lot. Is there some assurance that cars won't be parked in those emergency vehicle turnaround areas? And we appreciate that the planning board's approval is necessary for a common driveway. We ask that you deny the request. If the owner of Lot 1 wants to build a house on Lot 1, then we would imagine that similar approval could be sought for a driveway to go on the other side of the house, where there's plenty of room and the land goes right out to the street, rather than creating a parking lot and a street right next to our house. The plan doesn't make sense to us, and we don't think that this plan respects the property rights of the abutters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to comment? Public?
There's no one online that's asking to comment, so I don't know if you have anyone in the room that's asking for comment.
Is there anyone in the room that would like to comment? Okay. Patty, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay.
Rest of concern?
Yes, you may.
If I can. And thanks for coming into the meeting as well. Yes, there are assurances that there is not going to be parking on the common driveway because that's made a condition of the common driveway itself. It is not a parking area. It is simply a turnaround for emergency vehicles, which is required in Section 720 as part of the common driveway bylaw. There's no drainage going towards the neighbor. The common driveway is a reasonable use of property for anybody. If it was a simple thing and we could simply put the driveway on Lot 1 across the 50 feet of frontage, I can assure you we would put the driveway there. But in order to move the driveway over to that location, it would mean removing the entire driveway that Chris has existing right now, and coming up with a driveway that would actually, as Ben said, loop right around the entire property and go back into the back of Lot 2, still come down the property line in a reverse direction, and have Chris be able to get into the front of his garage, which would be a disaster. So in order to meet the requirements that the town has for us on the common driveway, this is the way the site has to be developed. We'd love to be able to come in and just put a single driveway out in the back. It just doesn't work because the way that this lays out. But I think the concerns that they have, again, are certainly conditionable, and it's routinely done on common driveways. And I'd love the opportunity to talk to the neighbors if they'd have me in. I would be glad to come in and explain to them face-to-face exactly why we're doing this, and I would look forward to that.
Just one further question or observation. The common driveway actually ends basically at the corner of the house. Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct.
All right. I have nothing further. Karen, do you have anything else you want to add?
I just have a question for the board. Are you going to want screening
Yes.
further back on adjacent, on the property?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A landscape plan, please.
Is there anything else that you want us to add that's in 775 or 6 that you think is necessary for the approval of this? And again, I think that's basically why we came in tonight, to just see that issue.
I would just put, we talked about it, but I would just sort of indicate the drainage here, how that drainage is going to work.
And again, we'll add the hydrant. We know we want to hear back from the fire department again, so that will be taken care of.
I would also show the location for the new septic system.
Okay, new septic. That hasn't been designed yet, but can we just give you a basic area where the perks were located so you'll know?
Yeah, I guess I'm contemplating a condition that basically would say,
We have no intent to put the septic under the driveway.
Right.
So
yeah,
that we would certainly
show
accept
an
that.
expected location or something.
Yeah, we'll give you an approximate location of that.
Ken?
How likely is it, right, that the development of Lot 1 is going to trigger the stormwater bylaw? How likely is that in all reality?
God, I'd be taking a guess and saying 50-50. I don't know. Again,
Well, so
his intent is to build a little bit smaller house, but again, it's less obtrusive if we do it this way here.
Right, let me just,
the other
So
direction.
I was just posing the question because let me finish. So one of my concerns then is how does this board, or if it's even like a more of an administrative stormwater review, how do we factor in now this common driveway into part of those drainage calculations and into the drainage system? When clearly the pervious area up to the 82 or 85 foot mark, wherever the common driveway ends,
Yep.
is on lot 2, but it really needs to be factored into the redevelopment or development of that lot. I think we need to clarify how this is all
If
gonna
we-
happen.
If there's more work done on Lot 2, which triggers the stormwater, which what you're saying is the 12-foot extension for the driveway coming across there, if that triggers it, absolutely, then you get a shot at it under the stormwater bylaw.
Sure, but have you hamstrung yourself because you've already filed this plan and done the common driveway out
Because
front?
there's nothing that's for sale right now, and again, this particular one is a family situation, so if they need to add a couple infiltrators out front because of that, we certainly can do that without a problem.
So this is not to be constructed, and is that what I'm hearing?
But
I don't,
think you have to
he's
think
not gonna
about it.
construct the driveway until he figures out what he's gonna do with the house out back. Is that the question that you're asking?
Yeah,
But I think from the drainage point of view, you have to sort of think about it as,
holistically. yeah.
there is going to be a driveway there, right?
Mhm.
So the drainage ought to contemplate that
Yep.
when it's laid out right now.
And again,
That's not what I was talking
if we get through this part of the process, again, which this is not a special permit, this is an administrative review.
Right.
If we meet everything that's in the bylaw, he's entitled to the driveway, okay? If you choose to try to vote against it for some reason, please tell us the exact section that we don't meet in the bylaw so that we can adjust for it. We believe we meet every section of the bylaw and is fully approvable as an administrative review. If we're wrong, let us know. Please don't just say, I don't like the way it looks, I'm going to vote against it, okay? That's what I'm hoping. If we're doing something wrong, tell us what we're doing wrong. We believe we meet everything that we have to meet, and if not, we'll make the adjustment. It's not a adversarial thing here. We're trying to help the Horns, accomplish what they want to accomplish. And I think that we've done it with this plan, and we will add the stuff in that we've talked about.
Karen, do you have any further comment?
And then
Thanks.
we're going to get some clarity from the fire chief.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I will talk to him. I continued this to March 24th at 7 o'clock. Is the drawings going to be resubmitted in an appropriate amount of time?
We will get them in as fast as we can. Again, are there other issues that you can see in 770? I think this is a reasonably simple drive as far as the requirements on the plan are concerned. Because the driveway pretty much already exists, we're just going to reconstruct what's there. But if you think you need more, that's really what we need. Otherwise, if we come back and then you ask for more information, we're just going to end up getting continued again. So if any board member thinks they need more than what we've just talked about, and we'll put all that stuff on, but if you think there's something we're missing, please let us know. And we'll go from there.
I would like the common driveway to continue to the property line of Lot 1, because that's what I think it should do.
We'll have to look at that. I don't know if that's a consensus of the whole board, but
But that's my consent, that's my point of view. I mean, like I said in the beginning, I feel that this is an incomplete plan.
and again, there is no requirement that it does that, so there's no section we can point to that says that it has to do that.
I understand that, I do.
Yep.
Okay, I mean,
We will look at that. If it's something that we can do, then we'll give that a shot. If we feel that it's not right, then we're going to stick with what we've got.
well, thank you. All right, I move to immediately continue the public meeting for the site plan administrative review, common driveway at 46 College Street until March 24th, 2022 at 7 p.m. and to continue the time for action for filing with the town clerk until May 13th, 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we move on, Stephen, to the common driveway at 533 Country Way.
Okay, we're gonna hope this one will be a little bit quicker if I can. Just Steve Bjorklund here for Marble Homes. And this is the common driveway that we've already been in front of the board. And this has gone out for review because it was a much more extensive situation as far as stormwater is concerned. So there's really two parts to this one. The stormwater permit itself, which is required for the two dwellings out there and the driveway, and just the driveway itself. So there's really two things going on here. Just quickly, the stormwater stuff has been reviewed by Mr. Chesia. I know you've all seen the letter that he had. We kind of went back and forth a little bit. Last time Greg Tansey came in, we had about 10 items that Greg kind of went over. Might have been a little slow, but I'm going to talk as quick as I can. Slow me down if you want me to, but I'm going to try and get through it. So I think that Greg has made those changes that were requested. He is still working with Mr. Chesia, so there is not a final plan that's in front of you. This is a plan that's in process, and the drainage items will certainly be put on the plan, even though there are actually two separate plans, one for the common driveway, one for the stormwater permit. So we have given to Karen two sets of plans, two copies, I should say. I actually highlighted one of the copies up with all the changes that Greg Tansey, the engineer, had made to hopefully make it reasonably simple for Mr. Chesia to look and pick out each of those items that's been changed on the plan. I think all in all, this is I think it's a nine-page plan, I think. So it's just much more extensive than the other one. So I'm not in to talk about the drainage on this, which for everybody, because it's very elaborate. But they will continue to work forward on that, and this will be extended again. Again, this is just an interim meeting that we're having. The last time I came in, I thought we might have a little bit more time to talk. And right at the very end of it, Steve, we kind of said, you know, I need the planning board to tell me what more you want on the plan as far as that section 770 is concerned. Again, I wish it was never tied into a common driveway because it just doesn't make an awful lot of sense. And I'd much rather see a common driveway bylaw that laid out what you need to see for the common driveway, not tied into really a commercial review of a site plan. When you look at that section of 770, basically it starts out on your site plan review. 770.1, the purpose. The purpose of this bylaw is to ensure that new land uses or additions to existing uses that are of a size that may have significant impacts on neighborhoods or the town are designed to meet established standards and the goals and objectives of the Scituate master plan. Okay? Site plan review continues to talk about the applicability of why you use this particular section. In any district now existing here and after adopted, no site other than that used for a single or two-family dwelling shall be altered, and no structure other than a single or two-family dwelling shall be constructed, externally altered, or externally enlarged, okay? So really what we're looking at is putting two single-family homes out here. So we're throwing this driveway, this piece of pavement, into this whole site plan review, which again, in my opinion, has kind of created something that it shouldn't have created. We thought they were going to be a little bit more simple. Just as we did before, it's a matter of how much more information does the planning board want us to put on this particular plan to show that the driveway portion is okay. Forget all the drainage for the stormwater, but just the driveway itself. We're willing to add the stuff that needs to be added. I'm just asking the board, are there things that we don't have to add because you don't need that to make this type of a decision as compared to a commercial building going up where you need to know everything that's in 770. Just the cost to add all of those things in the plan is a lot of money when I don't think that some of the stuff you have to have on there. I think this plan's got a lot of stuff that you need for the driveway already on there. I'm just wondering, again, is there something that's missing from this plan that you specifically want us to add prior to us coming back? And this, again, will be continued, but I'm hoping that I can address whatever concerns you have now, if anybody says, please add this, please add that, I'm just going to make a list, and I have somebody on the Zoom meeting that's also going to make a list for me, in case I miss something, but I just want to add the things that you think should be added to the plan. I know in Mr. Chessia's review, he basically, he reiterates all of the items that are in 770 and says, this is, I'm referring it to the board, they're not decisions that he can make. All these 770 decisions are things that is up to the planning board to decide if you need these to say that this driveway is okay, we need to add them. If you don't need them and you think that there's enough information to see what this driveway is doing, again, not the drainage, but the driveway is doing, are we okay? The stormwater certainly will be handled with the remainder of the review from Mr. Chessia. And I think we're actually getting pretty close. We might not be 100% on the drainage, but we should be really close with the stuff that Greg had just changed. And hopefully we'll hear from John prior to the next meeting.
Mr. Cheshire is not going to review the plans you submitted the other day. He's going to wait for a complete set, and then he will review it.
That's fine. I have no problem with that. Tried to get him ahead of the game, because I know he's a busy guy. And again, the stuff you asked for is, he's just asking your comments. So why he would need to review your comment on whether I need the information or not sounds kind of redundant when he's saying, can you tell us that this is the information? But we're glad to do that.
Well, thank you so much. Karen?
Well, let's get with the questions.
All right, the questions. All right, does the board want additional cross-sections? Go through this list of areas, and cross-section provided does not seem consistent with the design.
I
Steve, this
think
is your...
last time you said yes, you did.
Yes, and 720 points.
Okay, now just so
Before
you know,
before you go to
that-
that, can we just look at the drawing? So what do you have as cross-section?
what we did is this plan that you have right here, because I don't want to confuse up what has been changed with Mr. Chessia. So this is the same plan that you guys have. What he asked for is to find out basically where the curbing stops on the driveway. That has been added to the plan, not this one, but it's been added to the plan that is there. So he has that information on that, so.
All right. The next one, are we okay with the site disturbance? This section requires minimizing the disturbance.
So what are you asking for there?
We're just asking for what's on the plan. So like, again, these are items that you need to see. Do you need any more information? We showed all the trees that are on there. We showed some areas on there on the original plans that are not to be disturbed. Do you have what?
Site disturbance area?
Yeah, there's an existing tree line that's out there. They have, I think they've added to the plan that you'll see that say that any trees that can be saved in those areas will be saved. It's the intent. Mr. Sharon doesn't want to take down more than he has to because it just costs him money, and he wants to keep tree lines out there.
Do we want any screening, people? Yes.
Okay, now this particular one, when you talk about screening for the driveway itself, the driveway itself is going right in the middle of Mr. Sharon's property here. And with the scenic roadway hearing, we have to put some trees in there. That was already agreed to. And I know you asked for a landscaping plan.
Yes.
He actually is having, I believe it's Amy Martin, do a landscaping plan. And my only comment on that is she's basically going to show the locations of where the trees that we've agreed to put in that are going to be removed to do the sidewalk and stuff out front will show on a plan. But as far as getting into individual landscaping on the individual lots, that's really going to be up to the homeowner, whether they want a rhododendron or a pine tree. I've never seen the board get involved in a single-family home site and tell somebody what they have to put in, but this is for the driveway itself. So in the driveway, the only thing that's going to be landscaped in the driveway is grass swales and some trees. So we'll show you the location of those trees. We had originally agreed under the scenic roadway permit to do those under the direction of, I think it was Karen, so that Paul could say, this is where I'd like to have them, make sure they work. Karen would have the authority to say, we want you to move here or there. We'll do it either way, but you will be getting a landscape plan prior to the next meeting that just shows the trees. It's not going to be elaborate.
Hey, just one thing I want to bring up with this. I wanted to bring up the last meeting, but we kind of ran out of time. Now this is like a newer bylaw, so you might not be fully aware of it yet. I'm still learning all the new stuff, but Section 751 is the low impact development standards. And as a site in the Water Resource Protection District, you are subject to those regulations as far as drainage, and also for site landscaping, which is 751.3. I would advise that your drainage design engineer, as well as your landscape architect or designer, pay attention to this section, because I, in particular, I'm sure some of the other board members will be looking for some of this to be in there, and I think in some ways it goes beyond just, it gets into what you were just addressing, where like the board doesn't always ask for, landscaping to be shown on single-family lots. I understand that, but this is kind of one of those gray areas where drainage and this new standard kind of, there might be some things there, just to review.
I'm hoping that what the board would ask us for, as far as that's concerned, if that is applicable to a common driveway, that we maybe get some kind of a list of what section you might want us to meet. In other words, is it 751.A, B, whatever?
Yeah, I would particularly look at 751.3, and which is like more referring to the actual site landscape, but also the low impact development standard as a whole it should be informing the design of the drainage system, but I know we're trying to stay away from the drainage aspect right now, but it's better.
This is extremely extensive, what he's gone through drainage-wise here to meet all of the requirements of the stormwater bylaw.
Right.
So I'm hoping that this won't conflict with the tens of thousands of dollars that have been spent to make this thing meet all of those requirements.
I don't think it will. I think that functionally what I've seen from this plan meets a lot of it is LID already. It might have to do more with the aesthetic look and feel of how it should be implemented.
By the time I walk out of here tonight, I'll be looking at 751.3, and we'll try and address what we can in there. Hopefully, again, if it doesn't upset what we've done, if it's something that we can do that's reasonably simple, we'll do that.
751.2.
751.2?
No, 2 is what your engineer should be looking at.
So sections 2 and 3.
Yeah, 2 is the low impact design, right? So assuming he's
2 and 3.
done that.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's rain gardens, things like that. I mean, and we've got that type of stuff on there.
Yeah,
The swales, all that type of stuff. And we got more swales here than any subdivision I've ever done in 40 years.
Okay. All right, let's
have a
move.
whole school of swales.
Pretty much.
All right,
Got those.
do we need a speed analysis?
And this one, a speed analysis has never been done that I know of for a common driveway. I've probably done most of them in town. Again, we get into those AASHTO standards and 85 percentile and all that. I think we have over 300 feet, I think, in both directions on this, which exceeds what we need to have anyway. Traffic rules and regs has already chimed in on this. They don't have a problem with it. Fire department's all set with this one as well.
All right, does the board want building floor areas?
Wait, so is that a no? I don't have to worry about that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Does the board want building floor areas?
Last time you said yes.
Yes.
So now that, again, as we go through these, I want to try and comment if I can. That's where you get into the commercial part of the site plan administrative review. If this is a commercial building that's going up, it's going to have a lot more impact than the single-family dwellings. So that's one of the ones where I feel like, I mean, does that mean that somebody couldn't come back in and request a change in their house or something like that? The footprints are there. If you just want us to tell you what the size of the footprints are, we can add that on the plan.
If we want.
Just the footprint. Okay, just the footprint.
Which you need for your drainage calcs anyway.
Yeah,
You
yep.
need it for the drainage.
Well, and it's probably in the drainage
Well, it
calcs,
is,
but
yeah.
again, I didn't read that Bible, and I'm not gonna read the Bible. But we'll make sure that it says on there what the square footage of the dwellings themselves are, footprints.
All right, do we want required setbacks listed on the zoning?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what does it say
We
again?
want required setbacks.
F is yes.
It meets all the required setbacks. Oh, yeah, so I don't have to do anything.
No, we put the table on the,
Is the table.
Oh, the way the table was put on here, it talks about what's required and what's proposed. When you read it, there's 2 blocks in that area, okay? The information is there, but I think when Mr. Chesia looked at it, he didn't quite understand that it's on the table itself, okay? So it's there, the information is there. it's not on the sheet right here, it's on another sheet. If you want me to flip to it, I can.
No, it's fine.
But we'll go quick. The information's
We're
there.
moving along here, Steve.
Okay.
All right, do we want additional topography on the abutting properties?
Last time you said yes within reason.
Okay.
Okay, now, on that one, to address that, again, because we're looking at the common driveway itself here, and Mr. Chesia had requested on this, I'm going to call it a water device because I don't know what we're calling it now. This depression here is going to hold the water. We were looking at whether there was going to be any impact over here to this particular neighbor, and you had asked us to take, or Mr. Chesia had asked us to take this outlet and make it so that it affects this house more than it does the neighbor. That's now been relocated, and it's going to be in this direction here, facing towards us. So I don't think that, you know, one, we don't have the permission to go on the neighbor's property to do the stuff there, but as you see the grades do go down to Country Way, but we addressed that issue with, he thought the water was going to go there. And about the only thing I know as far as drainage is concerned is Mr. Tanzi had said to me, presently in that area, that sub-catchment area, there's something like 0.29 cubic feet per second in a 100-year storm event. With what he's designed here, it's 0.11. So it's been reduced by at least 50%.
All right.
So is that okay? That, I mean, as far as the driveway is concerned?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's a lot of work, and I don't think it changes anything, but we have addressed that, so.
All right, do we want specificity regarding trees to remain on a landscape plan? I think we said yes. Yeah.
Okay, now that's not on the landscape plan, but it's on the plan now. It's on the overall plan.
Right.
Do you need to see that also on the landscape plan, those
Yes.
dotted areas? Okay.
Do we want data on entrances and exits to the houses?
Yes.
Okay.
What is,
And again, you've got the front, you already have the exits coming out the front because they've added a little patio deck areas there on the plan. And they've got walkways that go to the driveways. So I mean, you can tell where the door is in the house because it's right where that comes out, right where the decks come out. I mean, do you want to see all of the exits from these dwellings? I mean, that's never been asked before, but you can clearly see where the main entrances are coming in now.
Main entrances?
Yes.
And the walkway,
Yep, and those are on the plan.
All right,
and the lighting.
and lighting, we want
The
that.
lighting, what you had asked us for was, and you caught me in because you said you wanted a light at the end of the driveway, and I just said we'd do the same one that you have at your house. I did go by, you have one there. We have added to the plan 2 lights at the end of the driveway, 1 on either side, so that each neighbor has to run a light bulb, and you will clearly see the driveway and won't get lost on the way in. So they've been added to the plan.
Unlike the library. Okay. So, we have lighting, increased impervious area, recharge, that's part of the drainage, isn't it?
Yeah, don't get into drainage, we'll get lost.
And then the recommended conditions, I think those go without, yes, both of them.
What are they? Because I'm on.
720.3, which is DPW approval for the sidewalk construction,
Oh, yeah.
and 720.5, require a copy of the O&M agreement as a condition prior to release of the lots for construction.
And I think you have the O&M from Greg already. If there's something needs to be adjusted for that, we'll make the adjustment, but I believe that you've got that, so the O&M's not a problem. O&M. And again, as we get close on this, we'll start to work with DPW once we know that this is pretty well set. I didn't want to do too much with them first. We know roughly what we have to do, but there will be a separate plan for the work within the roadway layout so that they know that what they get, because it is on town property.
I understand. All right, Sherry, do we have anybody in the audience, because this is a public hearing, that wants to speak?
We can certainly ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment. If you're online, you can go down to participants and raise your hand. And if you're in the room, the board can address you in the room and ask you for your comment. But I don't believe there's anyone online at this time.
Is there anyone in the room that would like to comment? Karen?
Does this answer all your questions?
I believe it does. I'm never going to say it's 100%, but like I say, I've got somebody else that's taken notes for me as well, and we will try and go through these
I
items.
won't
that
say
you-
the answer's 100% either. You
Yeah,
have to figure out
I know. I think we're getting close. That's the thing. The drainage, again, That's between Mr. Tanzi and Mr. Chesia, but I believe that that's extremely close at this point. And it's no longer called a tree box.
Thank you.
What's it called?
Yeah, what's it called?
I don't know. It's a media filter bed or something like that. Sounds really nice. Sounds like it would be a low impact, a low impact thing.
Okay.
And obviously that's going to be vegetated with something. I mean, they've got to put something in there, whatever works. But I'm hoping that's not part of the landscape plan.
People here don't like that.
Right.
They don't like that.
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for the stormwater permit and the public meeting for the site plan administrative review for common driveway at 533 Country Way until April 14, 2022 at 6:30 PM, and to continue the time for action, filing with the town clerk until May 6, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, Stephen.
All right, thank you very much. And I know this one's been difficult, but I think we're getting there.
Slowly but surely. Thank you so much. Now, we are the continued zoning public hearing articles.
24th.
All right. Section 440.5 business districts. Is there any further new comment? This is basically a housekeeping issue. Is there any comment, people, anywhere? No. Yeah, I know, but you have to ask. Section 602.3 setback and yard requirements, didn't we decide to?
Yeah,
We're dropping that. That's gonzo. And then we have 610.1 lot area and width requirements. Is there any further comment on lot area and the new language that we put in it?
Just to let you know that Mr. Vogel is on the remote access here.
Yes, we see him. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
all right.
This one you're chatting about now is the rat tail
Yes.
bylaw. I know at the last meeting that we were at, there was still some discussion as to exactly how that was going to be handled. I haven't seen the new language yet. Is it that you can't use the area that's within that certain distance as part of the lot area? And does that have a minimum on it now? And I don't know if Greg is even still here.
No, he's gone.
Is he in the back?
It's 30 feet and you can't use,
I'll read the language one more time, and I sent the language to Mr. Morse
Oh,
as
I'm asking
requested.
myself, that's why I say he left, so he'd have the answer. I'm just,
Any lot created after April 11th, 2022 shall have dimensions sufficient that a circle of 30-foot diameter can be drawn tangent to the exterior of any property line at all points without the boundaries of said circle passing over the opposite property line. Any portion of any lot created after 4/11/22 that does not meet the above criteria shall not be counted toward the buildable lot area. All buildable lot area must be contiguous.
a buildable lot area must be contiguous. Explain that one to me if you can.
what it means is,
For dumbbells.
right, you can't end up with a rat tail that counts towards your buildable. Take as an example 33 Beaver Dam Road, where they purchased a piece of property that went from 33 down to Jericho, and they used that as, for their septic. That would be.
That was just to put a sewage pipe out. to
That would be
Jericho.
allowed, but that 10-foot space would not be allowed to count toward the main.
Okay, so if you have less than 30 feet of width, you can't open it back up and use the area that's in the back, because that wouldn't be contiguous with what's
That's
up the
right.
front.
Yes,
That's correct.
that's right.
Okay. But you can create the lot, you just can't use the area. So you could use it for a septic system,
Yes,
something like that.
yes.
You just can't count towards the area.
Correct.
That's correct. Okay?
Yep.
Got that? All right. And then, is there any further public comment on that one? Moving on to 810, 830, about rebuilding houses that have been left. Mr. Vogel.
Is it, I mean,
We don't need a presentation.
Is there any further new comment on this particular bylaw. Does anybody have any new information that they would like to add or to be considered? And if they don't,
We haven't rewritten it. since
we have not
last-
rewritten it, so.
No, he's kept the wording, the
Everything's-
wording the same.
Right.
He's kept the wording the same.
So unless there's no new information, Bob, I think that we're all set.
All right, I'll accept that. Thank you very much.
And you can go have your dinner.
Finish my dinner.
Well, there you go. Lucky you. Okay, Bob.
No public comment?
Oh, cut it out.
I just want to say I've gone over this with Bob, and I'm actually in favor of it now. How's
Oh,
that?
my God. Imagine that.
We'll get you back later.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right.
Can you take it, please?
Okay, Bob, please make sure you leave the meeting too, don't,
Just click off, right.
Thank you.
yeah, click leave, don't click anything other than that.
Don't dump the whole meeting.
Please, that's been done before. All right,
Right.
okay, now we have marijuana, cannabis. All right. Patty,
So we do have,
talking to the,
so we do have, I do have some open statements, and hopefully the third time is the charm, this will be our third time of years. And I want to say directly that the planning board did not draft or propose the cannabis bylaw until the citizens put forth their own bylaw. So in 2018, the voted to place a ban on the adult use marijuana. But the state had legalized it in 2017, so we have a little bit of a disconnect. So the moderator, in 2018, instructed us, the planning board, I was working with it, to craft a legal land use for adult use marijuana. And we probably should have stopped that 2018. But we were a little sort of engaged. And what happened was a citizen's petition was brought to us for adult use cannabis in the town. And until that time, the planning board had had no additional directive to craft anything until we came forward to speak to us. So time passed, and in October 2021, sure enough, the citizen's petition was presented to the town meeting to lift the ban on marijuana. But it would be irresponsible to lift a ban without a responsible zoning bylaw in place. So bylaws protect the town and the citizens from the signing of a business or use, particularly one as controversial as cannabis is in Scituate. In any area that is inappropriate for such a use, based on the feedback from all the shareholders in the town, and we talked to the police, we talked to the clergy, and we talked to the taxpayers and the residents and town meeting voters. And if we hadn't engaged in this process and made significant edits to the proposed bylaw with the amendments that those stakeholders asked us to do, it is a very real possibility that the ban could be lifted without the safeguards that are incorporated in the bylaw. This bylaw is a responsible legal land use for adult use marijuana. And again, the citizens petition requested to lift the ban, but you need a zoning bylaw to accompany such an action. And this is what we are doing because this is our legal responsibility as elected officials. And I take umbrage when people suggest that the planning board sought actively the advice of a marijuana specialist in helping to craft a new bylaw. Mr. Romano offered his services to us, and we accepted some of his suggestions, and we rejected a lot of others. And our goal was to create a bylaw that reflects the needs of the citizens of Scituate, while creating a framework for the signing of these businesses should the ban be lifted. Like it or not, there are some Scituate residents who want the ban to be lifted, and they were doing so outside of the lengthy public comment process in which we have engaged. And I am additionally offended at the suggestion that the members of the planning board are engaging in this process for any reason other than to do our jobs, which is to create a bylaw for the signing of a legal business in Massachusetts. And please note that Mr. Romano has not received one penny of money from us, no public funds were expended on his expertise. We eventually had to engage town council, given the volume of incorrect assertions that were made to the planning board's comments. And Mr. Romano is not the only lawyer we have consulted. We have also gone all the way up to the Attorney General's office. And this is how the process unfolds. You put the zoning in place, you lift the ban, you change the bylaws, and we're done. Cannabis is in Scituate today anyway, and with or without the planning board engaging in this process, there are residents of Scituate who will seek to overturn the existing local ban on an adult use cannabis business. People cultivate at home and they purchase cannabis from other dispensaries in Massachusetts. And if you believe that a dispensary in Scituate should be prohibited, vote no on lifting the ban. And if you believe that Scituate would benefit from marijuana establishments, then vote yes on the updated zoning bylaw and lifting the ban. And lastly, I would like to say that this board is not in conversation with any other boards. We have no idea how any other board is going to vote on this. We haven't even decided among ourselves how to do that. And based on our last meeting, we have added more things to our bylaw, and I'm just going to tell you what they are, because these are new. We're not going to rehash what we've already done. So after consultation with the town council, who is here on Zoom, and in talking to the Attorney General, the table of uses was expanded to include all types of establishments. But we then added those establishments to the appropriate zoning area. And you can refer to the homepage, which I showed people on planning board homepage, and you will see that the use will be on the homepage, many pages. And some of the suggestions include adding playgrounds, libraries, and ball fields to be at a distance of 500 feet from a marijuana establishment. And an advocate for lifting the ban suggested that we change the cultivation facilities from 10,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet for both medical and adult use establishments. And then in section 440.3B, number 3, you see the added language that says, and I quote, "No marijuana establishment shall be cited or allowed unless and until such time as section 482 of the zoning bylaw and section 32060 of the general bylaws are removed." And most importantly, if the zoning language passes and the ban is not lifted, then the zoning becomes illusory. And therefore, the town can be subject to a lawsuit. Because illusory is defined as based on an illusion and not real. So that is our new, we did listen, we have included that in our new bylaw. Town council is here, Mr. Romano is here. If we need a further clarification, if we can help you, I'm going to ask the board to close the public meeting after tonight's hearing, and we will not even vote on this until the next meeting. Okay?
You got 2 new comments today?
And I did get 2 new comments today, so in total now we have a comments from 13 people in the town. Everybody seems to bring up the same thing. Please read the bylaw. There are no marijuana facilities in any residential areas. All of our libraries, ball fields are in residential areas. The only playground not in a residential area is in North Situate, but we have included all playgrounds to be out of 500-foot distance. I don't know what else we can tell you. It's yes or no. It's your own decision to make. And please remember, I know people keep telling me that we have already voted this out. Again, I'm going to reiterate that this is democracy. And if people want to change the law, they have the right to bring it to town meeting floor, and that's where we make policy in the town of Scituate. Questions from the board? Questions from the public?
All right, we'll open it up to the public. Unless there is something new that you would like to add that we have not already discussed, welcome. If it's, we're not going to, replow this ground.
Yeah.
Because we have gone through this and gone through this and gone through this. So, Sherry, we'll open it up to people, one person
I'll take it. One person from Zoom and one person from
Right,
the room.
okay.
So we'll start with the room if anybody has a comment on anything new that we discussed tonight, please.
Okay, so I just want to let you know that Town Council Cindy Amara is online, and Cindy, you do have the ability to mute and unmute yourself when you feel necessary. Okay, go for it.
Thank you.
Anybody here in the room have something to say? Yes, ma'am. And could you state your name and your address, please?
Sure. Maureen Conley, 1 Rachel's Way. Do you want me to stand?
No, you're fine.
Okay. 1 Rachel's Way. I was not at the last meeting. However, I did watch it on TV, and I do have a few comments. I did some homework, and looking at the municipal zoning tracker, out of 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth, 113 have a ban in place. Unfortunately, not all towns answered the survey, but including most of the South Shore. And there was only one town, Upton, that had zoning laws in place along with the ban. That was the only one. So that tells me that we should be voting on the ban first at town meeting. And if town meeting were to continue with the ban, then there would be no need for bylaws, as what I saw in the municipal zoning tracker. So if you could review that, I would be pleased. On a positive note, I was glad to hear that the priority is to protect children in neighborhoods. I did look at the zoning bylaws for both Quincy and Marshfield, and they have much more in their zoning laws as far as protecting children. They also can include colleges, licensed daycares, recreational or athletic fields, boys and girls club, or similar places where children congregate. They talk about youth activities for those under 21 years old. Quincy also have any public beaches and any public transit centers. And I think that's important to include. All I could think of is, do we really want people coming from wherever using the commuter rail to buy their marijuana? The next thing I wanted to talk about was property lines.
Can I address your other issue first?
Sure.
First of all, you need to, if you read our bylaw, it will tell you that that is within 500 feet of everything that you talk about. And not to worry about that. It is illegal for anybody under 21 years old to be in a dispensary, first of all, so we certainly would not be around children. It is 500 feet per licensed daycare centers as well. That is in the original part of the bylaw.
Okay.
In response to people talking about beaches and marinas and whatnot, that is we have a general bylaw that says you cannot consume alcohol or drugs in public. That is a policing activity. That is not up to the planning board. So if you see somebody doing that, that's I have a civic responsibility to call the police. So that's just not that we're dismissing that, but that's not our role to be able to be from a public beach. That is covered under our general bylaw.
Okay, I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but in these, in the city of Quincy, they have it listed in both places. So,
but our beaches are also in residential areas, and we cannot have them there.
okay. All right. The other thing that I really wanted to discuss was the boundary lines. All right, in both Quincy and Marshfield and here in Scituate, you use 500 feet of a property line. In Quincy, they also use 1,500 feet for residential districts. And in Quincy, they define the calculation as the direct measurement from the nearest property line of the land used for the above purposes, which I previously mentioned, to the nearest portion of the building in which the marijuana establishment is located, using a route of direct pedestrian access. So neither one of them is measuring from the center of a building. And by doing that, you're shortening the distance that is required. And neither one of them has 400 feet for a special permit. So I'm hoping that you could look at those again as far as how you do the measurement. I think by using the center of a building, you're shortening what we want to be doing here. In Marshfield, their facility, I'm sure you're familiar with it, is on 139. It's not near anybody, it's not in the pedestrian area. In Quincy, they have a medical one right now. There's one in the works somewhere near the Blue Hills. So again, it's not near anybody. It doesn't impact anybody. So I asked you, why would you be considering North Scituate, which has plenty of neighborhoods, a playground, ice cream shop, and most importantly, lots of kids? Or Greenbush, which has plenty of neighbors, Scituate Pediatrics, a playground, a dance studio, etc. And from what I can see as to the building there, you would know a lot more about it than I do, but it looks like it's going to be becoming a very vibrant area for families in the town. And for that matter, Scituate Harbor is also a very family-friendly area. So in summary, I would ask you again to, as others have mentioned, to have the ban on the town meeting warrant before the zoning bylaws, to look at the municipal zoning tracker, which I mentioned, and to really look at your boundaries and how they are done, because the way that you have them done, it definitely shortens the 500 feet. And especially if you were to have, a special permit at 400 feet. What I was pleased about is the last meeting is one of the most important things that I think you said was to protect our children. And I would hope that that would be a top priority, and that you would find a more appropriate area where children and families don't congregate.
I accept that. Why it would go into North Scituate or Greenbush, those are our commercial areas. So that's why, so although there are residential parts of those areas as well, where they're going to be sited is what on our zoning map is defined as commercial areas. Cindy, do you want to?
They're right beside though,
Yes.
neighborhoods and the playground, and, do we want to subject our children to that?
Well,
I think we
Well,
have
I
to
think
protect
that
them.
becomes a debate about whether you want to
Yeah,
have a
that's-
ban or not.
Yeah, that's another debate. I know what you're saying, I totally get that. So, that I'm gonna say not to be offhand, that you're a no, but that's okay. You come to town meeting, you can vote that way, and that's why we have these public hearings, and we need to hear that. Cindy, do you want to speak to the how this stuff is put on the warrant, please?
Sure. In my experience, I've seen it done, you do the bylaw first, because if you lift the ban first and the bylaw does not pass, then you have a situation where you have no ban and you have no zoning limitations governing, other than your regular old zoning that would apply to anything else, where such facilities could go. It's a logical progression of events. If you pass the zoning, you then lift the ban. You should do both or do neither. But the risk of lifting the ban without having zoning already voted means you risk expanding where such establishments can be lawfully located within the town without any of the protections that the zoning bylaw puts in place.
Thank you.
I'd like to just ask Cindy about that a little bit, because I think we were a little bit misinformed last time about the potential impacts here. Why is it that we couldn't do the ban vote along with the zoning simultaneously? Package it all together.
Because they're two separate votes.
Why would they have to be two separate votes? One's a vote.
Because they're two separate
So that's
issues.
a
One
ban,
is to change
that's the
and
vote. I'm sorry?
one is to change an existing zoning bylaw to, remove it, and the other is to add a new section. Even if you were to put them as one article, they would be taken up as two separate motions, because they're two separate subjects. And realistically, from a practical point of view, the same group of people are going to vote yes for the zoning and lift the ban, or no for the zoning and don't lift the ban. And they're back to back for that reason.
I'm not buying that.
Well, and you can say that, Steve, but like I said, we've spoken to many lawyers, including the Attorney General, who tells us this is the way that this needs to be done, so.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
You know, what I heard last time was that if we passed the zoning, and if we pass the zoning and don't lift the ban, we are exposed to being sued. We're exposed to litigation. That's the feedback I got on that, which was not what we said last time. So I'm asking why we can't package everything together and make one decision. Yes, means you'll have a new set of zoning bylaws without a ban. No means you'll keep the ban.
They're just routinely done as two separate articles or at least two separate motions because they are technically two separate questions before the voters. Just like the third one is the general prohibition that also needs to get lifted. They're separate questions for the town, and the town should vote consistently among the three. There is no rational reason for someone to vote for lifting the ban but not putting in zoning, and there's no reason for someone to vote to keep the ban and not put the zoning. They go hand in hand.
I still don't, I mean, if it's just tradition, then I wouldn't worry about tradition, because the real issue is whether to lift the ban or not. And if we're going to lift the ban, then the bylaw that is going to be in place should be voted at the same time.
They are being voted at the same time, but they're just consecutive. They're consecutive, back to back.
I still think you're going to end up with this potential problem.
That will be the waterways.
That's up to Mr. Toomey.
I think it's up to us.
No, I think it's up to the
I think we get to make the decision on how we're going to present the bylaw.
I think it's up to the town moderator in the warrant. Is it not, Cindy?
The town moderator will instruct people of the consequences of a yes vote on the zoning and a yes vote on the zoning ban, lifting the zoning ban, and a yes vote on lifting the general bylaw ban. And he will also inform everybody of the consequences of doing the opposite. He will also explain why, if you're going to vote one way, you vote consistently.
Yeah, he's not setting the warrants, we are.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
We recommend an order of the warrant articles when we submit them to to Nancy, who's making the warrant.
Right.
But that's part of what we do.
I'm saying I'm recommending you put it together and do it as one.
Have that discussion.
We'll have that discussion.
I think we should.
All right, fine.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Mr. Bajorklin?
Yeah, town meeting is a heck of a game. Haven't been to many of them. If you really need to put the zoning in, no matter what happens, you gotta put the zoning in. If the zoning goes in and that passes, and then you go for the moratorium to lift the moratorium, and the moratorium doesn't get lifted for some reason, you can always motion to reconsider the article on the zoning. If you're worried about getting sued.
Right.
If the moratorium stays in and you decide, you know what, we don't want to be sued, we can remove the zoning, just do it at the next article.
Right.
You only have to have one article in between,
Right.
and somebody stands up and makes the motion. So
Right.
that's a town meeting game that's played before,
All
but
the
it might
time.
actually help the town in this situation. And Steve certainly would take care of the problem that you have, because I think,
Voting them together.
I think
We
you
can't.
can't vote two articles at the same time.
You
You
can't.
gotta vote one, then vote
Different
the other.
thresholds.
Right.
So the closest
Right.
that you can get, you have to have the zoning in place. Otherwise, you can put it right next to the playground, okay? If it goes through, you can have it anywhere that the town would allow general business. You don't want that, okay? So pass the zoning, okay? And then if they decide not to lift the moratorium for some reason, if it doesn't get lifted, then the zoning either can stay in place, or if you're concerned about getting sued, just make a motion to pass, to read the article, and after moratorium, after everybody knows what happens with the moratorium, then you can rethink your zoning.
Right.
And it's done. You shouldn't have to talk about that, I don't think, all night, but that's the way to cure it.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Romano, I'd like to...
We have several people that have been holding on line to make comments, so can I please get to some of those people?
Yeah, can you have Mr.,
Let me get some public comment first, and then we can
Okay,
go
you
to
know
Val,
that,
okay? Because you have had a long line of people coming in.
okay, up to you.
Okay, Mr. Doherty, I'm gonna unmute you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I did get to speak at the last meeting, so I'll try not to repeat myself. What I had a lot.
Could you just identify yourself, please, with your address? Thank you.
Sure, Connor
Name
Doherty,
and address.
603 Country Way,
Thank you.
parent to 2 young children. So, I've heard a lot from Ms. Lambert this evening and previously about consulting with lawyers and, consulted with Mr. Romano, letting us know that, this wasn't anything they sought out, that it was pro bono services, etc. I also hear all this concern about for the children. What I haven't heard is, have there been any consultations with public health experts, with child counselors, with school nurses? My concern is there's a tremendous amount of research out just in the last decade showing the addictive effects of marijuana use, which is about 1 in 10 for adults, but it skyrockets to almost 20% when people start using it as a teenager. I hear you saying things like, oh, it's already here, it's already in Scituate. Sure, but opening a dispensary isn't going to make it less likely that our kids are going to be exposed to this and using it in junior high and high school. So I really hope we're considering all the pros and cons here. When I hear things like, of all these sites, the only one that has a public playground is North Scituate. Yes, that's true. The playground by Greenbush is not a public playground. It is a private playground for daycare, but the public uses it. I just hope that we're being really honest about all the pros and cons of this situation and looking at it holistically. Thank you.
Mr. Doherty, I'd like to address you with that. Our job is given to us by the town moderator was to take the citizens' petition and to make a legal land use. And their petition was to lift the ban. So while I understand all of your concerns, and I do, and all of us on the board and the general public, understand everybody's concern. Our job is pretty finite as to what we were tasked to do. And those concerns, as you speak, can come from anybody in the room, out there in Zoom, or on this board as to what happens for addiction. That is not part of our purview, I'm sorry to say. Ours is the legal land use, and that's what we are addressing. But thank you for your concern, and we certainly hear you. Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Thank you.
Okay, so can we take another comment on, online, please?
They have other ones.
Okay, sure.
Sure.
Ms. Galvin, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Should I put my picture on in a minute?
And please remember to name and address to identify yourself, please.
Of course. Hey, everyone. This is Anne Marie Galvin, 81st Parish Road. Thank you for continuing this conversation and for your thoughtful consideration of many of the comments you've heard throughout the process over the past month. I do appreciate it. I wanted to see, I didn't hear any replies tonight about my question from the last public meeting, and that was a question to the planning board at large, which was why this list of businesses. I've expressed this in several different meetings, and the first speaker tonight, the public commenter, the woman mentioned looking at zoning for Marshfield and Rockland and Quincy and other places where they have generally 2 to 3 adult use cannabis business types that are permitted or zoned in those communities that are near highways, those communities that have office parks, and better access for consumers. And my question to the planning board, I can understand possibly zoning in retail cannabis businesses or possibly even smaller micro businesses and things like that for our small coastal community. But I've yet to hear any rationale for the other 6 business types outside of retail for Scituate. And it's still, this is meeting number 3, several advisory board meetings, and also the meetings from this past October when the citizen petitioner was bringing the business types forward, but really we haven't heard anything yet. So is there a reason for delivery, transport, cultivation, manufacturing being included in this pretty complicated proposal?
Yes, there is. We have, since the last meeting, we have gone back and we've met with town council again, like we've been meeting with her multiple times, and town council has advised us that we need to include all the different types of marijuana establishments. Otherwise, it takes a ballot vote to exclude those. The citizens petition did not direct us to do a ballot vote. The citizens petition directed us to look at a bylaw for marijuana. So we have gone back and we have looked at places that we thought would be the most reasonable, just one zone for all these other establishments.
Okay, so that's inaccurate, and Val Romano on here can correct it. We do not need a ballot vote in Scituate. We're no community on the statewide ballot initiative, so we never need a ballot vote. It's always town meeting. It's always general bylaw and zoning bylaw. So my question to the planning board, who is putting forth the articles, why these 7 businesses for zoning in this tiny little seaside town?
It wasn't Mr. Romano who town council is advising us.
No, he wrote it. I'm referring to him because he wrote the statewide ballot initiative, and he knows very well that we do not need a ballot referendum to change our local zoning. We only need you guys. We only need our zoning board, our planning board. So why 7 businesses in our zoning, please?
We're doing what town council advises.
That's all. Just well.
So since town council's on here, can you please answer the question?
The original petition included all establishments.
But you don't include all, you include 7 out of 10.
No, all of
So
them
the
are there.
petitioner, Keith Saunders, wants a micro business and social consumption sites. Those aren't even on your list.
Oh.
So I don't know
Yes,
where
they
this
are. Go back to
They
the
added
previous
those
year where
in.
we had, those have been added. Go back to what-
is. No,
Yes, they are. They're added in the version that was posted online 2/14/22. The only one that we did not put anywhere in town is social consumption because it's not legal in the state yet.
so you added micro businesses?
Yeah.
Yes, it's there.
So I don't think I've seen that version.
Well, we
So
should have
the
looked at it.
change,
It's online.
the change from
Okay,
the
so my question
120.
remains the same.
Excuse me?
So the planning board is proposing these businesses. Other communities, including Quincy, including Boston, including the city of Cambridge, including Marshfield, including Rockland, none of these communities zone for all the business types. So why are we zoning for all the business types in Scituate? It's a very simple question.
Because we can if we want to offer business to local business, that's why.
So,
That's fine, and you can say no, Anne Marie, I mean, like I know, we've been having this discussion
this
forever.
is not me, I'm asking the planning board on behalf of myself and other residents that are curious, why all of them?
Because there may be people who want to come to Scituate and put that type of business in, and that's all it is. We never say, that's not denied in our plan. This is what we have meetings for, and that's what we will vote at town meeting.
Okay, we need
I mean, for one thing, as I said to you, I think you'd be more successful if you limited the business types. I think people would vote for it. I don't think people are going to vote for 10 business types. So I think it's a bad idea for if you want to be successful, but besides that, you have not made a case for it. So it's a shame.
Well, thank you, and we will take that into consideration.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like town council to speak to that point.
Cindy, could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, the law says if you're going to, you can limit the establishments to 20% of essentially your liquor stores, okay? But that's everything. If you want to go beyond that, you have to get a ballot question as well. So if you want, we've talked to the Attorney General's office, and if we want, you can do it, but you can't do it without a ballot question as well.
Thank you.
Patty, can you let me know where you'd like to go, the room or to?
We'll cover the room, we have another,
Sure. Tracy Ketting, 389 Country Way. I hope I articulate this well. I want to thank you all. Again, you did incorporate some of the changes. These have been hard meetings. They're hard for you guys. They're hard for us. It's such a volatile topic for everybody. So I do appreciate you hearing us and continuing to meet with us and opening your hearts and minds. When I look to vote in somebody, you guys have run for these public offices and stuff. For me, it's usually never personal. It's just about somebody who shares the same viewpoints and policies that I do, or that I want to see in place. But I do want to know what those are. You had alluded to the fact that you knew exactly what she was going to be voting for come election time, okay? As a citizen, and I think it would do well for, and you can refuse to answer it, but my question is going to be, to benefit both sides of this argument. Are you guys willing to say what your vote would be on that day?
We will.
So,
we will. Absolutely. You will know.
But are you willing to say that tonight where you fall?
Yes, you're not.
Because, and I'm only asking because we're arguing about stuff, but it's hard to, where I stand, where she stood, where we all stand. We really don't know where you stand. And that's going to affect, it's good to know. You guys are writing this stuff. You're going to make the recommendations. We vote for you guys. As a town, I wouldn't vote for a president if I didn't know what his viewpoints were or any town council. Tony Vignati did a very good job. He thanked you for all your work. He supported it, but he also said, I'm voting against this. That's where I stand with this. And it's, a lot of us are here just to have the courage. This takes a lot for a lot of us. It took a lot for me. I grew up in this town. It's a very personal thing for me. I had a brother that died this year, 51 years old, because he was an alcoholic, and it made it in this town. All right? I grew up here. I have a sister who is now a heroin addict. All right? I drank in this town before I was 21 years old. I know that, I've seen a lot of people in this town die. I've seen a lot of people lose people. I'm not even debating the moral compass of it, but I am saying that I think we as citizens deserve to know how you plan to vote. But it's your free will to tell us that or not. But I'm just saying, I'm voting no, but I am confused, like you said, Stephen. She said you're going to vote no on bylaws and no on the vote. But the way I'm thinking of it is, if the bylaws come first, I have to vote yes on those and still no on the vote. And so it's confusing. You're saying you have to be consistent in your votes, but without them being together, we're confused.
I'm going to tell you.
And I want everybody in this town, when they vote you guys back in.
No, and the status quo is maintained.
Yeah, let me tell you this, that you can vote, there are going to be 6 articles. If we, as a board, are going to vote, it is a public vote, so you will know how everybody on this board votes. We do not vote tonight, we will vote at our next meeting, okay? You can tune in, we're all going to say yay or no, but on all 6 of them, which is what's going to happen at town meeting as well. I understand your concern that, yes, you can vote to change the zoning. I understand that completely. And you can also vote no, that you don't want to live the ban. You can do that. What we're telling you is that at a legal point of view, if you look at this from a really high, the people who tend to vote to lift the ban are going to change the zoning. The people who don't want marijuana to come in are going to vote no in the zoning.
See, I disagree with that.
That's okay.
The way it's been presented, the way that this has been pitched to us, we should be voting yes on the bylaws and no on the lifting the ban. Okay, but that is not how that was just packaged. Stephen, you did a great job articulating that confusion. That's why you're saying put them together.
I think we just kind of learned about this last time.
Yes.
around.
I agree, so that's where we're coming from. That's that fear that everybody's kind of put in us, which is, if you don't do this, we're gonna get sued, or we're gonna lose it, or they're gonna do these big bad things to our town. That's the confusion, that's where our concern comes from.
Okay, I think that we are making this a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. I really do. I appreciate you having come forward. I feel badly for your loss. I understand where you are coming from. On the 10th, we will discuss and we will make a recommendation from the planning board to town meeting. But as Mr. Bajorklin so aptly pointed out, if the zoning bylaw, which is a land use, which is not an endorsement of cannabis, if that were to pass, and then everybody decided, okay, we don't want to lift the ban, we don't want to lift the general bylaw, then at the next article, someone gets up and moves to reconsider the article on the bylaw. That is your right to do, and it has happened before. You just have to make sure that nobody bails before this happens. Yep.
Sharon, could you get,
Basically, you want the results to be consistent, whether lifting all the bans and putting in the bylaw or keeping the ban in place and maintaining status quo on the bylaw.
Right, but
which is
that's not everybody's on the same page, and that's not clear, and we're trying to just get that information.
But that's part of our debate to have. We are not a unanimous board, or very few things are we unanimous.
I mean, would any of you have the courage to say what you plan on voting as of this moment on April 11th? Just so that people know, because you guys are now gonna go back and you're gonna make recommendations based on what you believe and where you stand on this matter.
They
And I
have to
think we
read
have
the
a right to-
recommendation, they have to read a report to town meeting that gives their recommendations. They have to physically vote that report at the March 10th town meeting, and they have to physically read that report and hand it to the moderator at town meeting.
But there's still citizens who get a vote on that day too.
Absolutely.
And they could be leaning one way, even if they recommend or their board recommends a particular situation. You just said it to her.
Yeah,
I know where you stand on that, but we don't know where you stand on
Well,
that.
you tune in next week, you will know where I stand.
Well, I was just asking if you had the courage to tell us where
I'm
you
going to tell you
stand
right now, I'm
today.
going to vote yes on both.
Okay.
So, Mr. Romano, can we...
Can I just say something to Tracy? I agree with you. I was very confused about putting the zoning in and then having it, voting it down. That's what I thought was the way to go, but apparently
It
that's
isn't
not the
easy.
way to go.
It's
So
not.
I know.
I was
Thank
getting
you.
that straight, so it was confusing.
Thank you.
All right.
Sharon, can we hear from Mr. Romano, please?
Miss Ferguson, Linda Ferguson, I think has been holding for a little bit longer than Mr. Romano, but it's your decision.
I'd like to hear from the attorney's point of view, if you don't mind. Please,
No problem.
to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Valeria. I'll be really brief so Ms. Ferguson speaks. So I think I could solve a couple of these issues. So I believe after the last version, and the planning board could help me, just make sure this is actually the version that came out. But I think at the end of the zoning bylaw portion, we added a sort of a savings clause that said if zoning passes, but lifting the ban does not, then the zoning has no effect. And I would ask Karen and Patricia to tell me whether that actually made it the final version, but I believe that's what we decided on. And that sort of solves this problem where, oh my gosh, what if zoning passes, doesn't pass, and then the ban passes, doesn't pass? It actually removes the ambiguity and the inconsistency with that. So, and I think Karen would probably be the best one.
Yes, I read that, Val. That's actually on page 30. It's 4.3B3, which is what I told you that we added, which is no marijuana establishment shall be cited or allowed unless and until such time as section 492 of the zoning bylaw, and section 3260 of the general bylaw are removed. So that's.
So basically that says, yeah, sorry,
Go ahead,
Patricia,
Val,
please
go
go
ahead.
ahead. So basically what that's saying is, look, so the reason they're ordering it the way they are is because the folks in Scituate don't want to have the ban lifted without zoning. Because then basically, like town council said, Ms. Samara, like, you could just say this is a regular retail use for a dispensary. You can go anywhere retailers or retail use is allowed in Scituate, potentially. So what they've done is to solve the concern that's been like voiced, a dozen times tonight, is they want to put zoning in first. But let's say we have this ambiguity and zoning passes and the ban doesn't, or zoning will have no effect unless the ban also is lifted. That's directly written right there. Patricia just read it. So let's put that one to bed. If anybody else still has a problem with it, I suggest you go read the bylaw.
Yep, and can I just respond to that then? Because I'm just saying,
I have one more quick comment.
Yep, go ahead, Val.
I have one more quick comment. And so the other issue that's been sort of giving some confusion is why were all the extra uses added? Lots of towns don't have zoning for the extra uses. And this is something else that we learned from Ms. Amara when we spoke with her. It's either all or nothing ban. So if the ban gets lifted, then what happens is all the uses go in. So it's just like what we spoke about with the retailer, right? So if the zoning enforcement officer says that, or the building inspector, whoever's in Scituate says that, a micro business, if we don't include it in our bylaw, maybe that's akin to manufacturing or agriculture. So it could go anywhere in Scituate that could go. So instead of just allowing these extra sort of like hanging on uses because you can't just ban some. If you ignore them in zoning, they're still allowed in the town with no ban. You just haven't created zoning for them. So you haven't created any regulatory framework for where they would be allowed. So basically, by adding these extra uses, which was extra work for the planning board, they didn't have to do it. They're like, oh my gosh, they were actually responding to the concerns that the citizens have in town, like all freaked out about this cannabis stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, we got to pigeonhole it, like figure out where these are going to go to. And it was extra hours of work for them to try to think about it and think it through. Because if you didn't include them in zoning, they'd still be allowed. You would just have to like put them wherever the like use would be. So basically, they went over and above what was originally done, and now it seems to have offended some folk. But actually, it was just more effort at protecting the town from a use that legitimately freaks people out. And so now they've put in all the different cannabis uses. And then finally on that point, and I'll be done, I'll let anybody else speak, the on-site consumption, that's just not allowed in Massachusetts anywhere right now. And the way we drafted the ballot initiative in 2016 was it only be allowed with a referendum of the municipality. And then the legislature kind of, messed around with our ballot initiative, but that's not allowed anywhere in Mass. So that's not one you have to worry about. But they added all the other uses at great time and thought for them, figuring out how they would go in, because you can't just have a some ban. It's either all ban or no ban. No ban means you should think about zoning for every use. And maybe some zoning bylaws and ordinances in the Commonwealth hadn't thought it through as well as the planning board here in Scituate did, but that's sort of where we're at. So I hope that answers both questions.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up, and that does help to answer the questions. I like the change that you just read and that was put in. But again, there is the confusion with what the town council said, which is you're going to vote a certain way. For someone like myself who would be voting against it, and again, no judgment there, I'm voting against it. But what he just explained was, given the clause that was added, though, I should be voting for these zoning boards. I should be voting a yes on that, and then a no on lifting the ban. But that isn't the way that town council expressed it. She expressed that if you're gonna vote no on lifting the ban, you would vote no on the bylaws. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that's clear. I think we would have to say yes to the bylaws from what everybody's saying. Then my other concern, which was why I asked you guys how you were voting, is because once this goes into place, there is that SP vote, which really, all these bylaws can be changed and overridden by the 5 of you in a vote. You can change.
No.
The ones that have the special permitting, you would express that at the last meeting, where you said you could reduce the space, the zoning, and all of that you would have that power. That's why I think as citizens, we should know where you stand on that. That's my only point. We should know where you stand on that, considering that you have the bulk of that power whether the bylaws go in, or they don't go in.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
But we changed that wording too from last time too.
Yes.
You guys, the audience was concerned last time that you thought, you wanted to take out the waiver, but, so we changed the wording. We put in 500 feet, but no less than 400 feet. So it can be no less than 400 feet. We listened and we added something to clarify that.
So it really got changed back to 400 feet?
No,
Yes.
it said, no, because they have to, the planning board has to find, I have to find it here in the, that it has to be unreasonable, they have to make a satisfactory finding that it's unreasonably impractical to go to 400 feet. So
You got 500.
if there's a standard there on, that the planning board, as a special permit, a granting authority, has to make. And, they take special permits very seriously and consider a lot of things in that.
But based on how you're gonna vote on this, would be where you would vote on that
Not
special
necessarily,
permit.
no.
To some degree though, but
No.
there is a reasonable, there's a reasonable decree that you would have, you have the leeway. Once this is in, we don't have that leeway anymore.
Well,
Yes, you do.
Well, you
So-
do. I said you just don't vote here, and that's how you, that is your leeway. We take special permits especially, and I know you were here for quite a while. We can draw it on about driveways and that, which people like kind of like them. But this is 38 pages, and I know it's a lot of hard work. But everybody needs to be informed about what it is that we are putting forward as a bylaw. That is super important, and look at that table of uses that we worked really hard on, and not just among ourselves. We have the West Legal Council, and so that we know what to do. So Sherry will take somebody else from the board.
Okay.
You think's been there for a while. Thank you. Linda? Hi.
Hi, sorry about that. So just a couple things,
I'm sorry, can you just please identify
Oh,
yourself
sorry.
with your name and address? Thank you.
Sorry, Linda Ferguson, 57 Kingsway. So I'm glad that Val brought up the fact that we don't necessarily have to lift the general bylaw, and we won't be able to be sued. Well, I guess you can sue anybody, but I am going back to what I originally said is you are essentially forcing us to vote yes on these zoning bylaws, whether we agree with them or not. And by that, I mean, it's something as simple as, the 500 feet from the center of the building. I mean, if you've got a 10,000 square foot building, I'm sorry, but 500 feet doesn't mean anything. So I think that I'm going way back to the fact that these both should not be on at the same town meeting. Because I think there's going to be a lot more brought up at town meeting to say, hey, we don't want this in the zoning bylaw, or we want this stricter. And so people are going to vote that down. And then the next vote is going to be lifting the general bylaw. And if there's enough people there who want pot in town, they're going to vote yes. And we're going to be in trouble because we won't have any zoning bylaws. And it's absolutely more than feasible that people are going to vote no on the zoning bylaws because they don't like the measurement, or they don't like the location of a manufacturing plant or a delivery service. Because once it's voted in, we're done. And when you go to special permit, I'm not exactly sure how those work, but special permits to me seems like it's up to 5 people sitting on that planning board, and how you feel. And to Tracy's point, today you guys might feel like you're not going to give a special permit of under 400 feet, but the next 2 people that get voted in might feel like they are. So I think in this case, the stricter the zoning bylaws and the more that's in place and not left up to somebody's opinion, the better it is for our town. And I guess I understand, because Val explained that we have to have manufacturing and delivery in there. I'm not sure that's true or not, but he said it is. But I think what we need to do as a town is decide, what do we want our town to look like? And by saying yes to manufacturing of marijuana, Amazon could be right down the road, and you're not going to be able to say no to them. we say no to McDonald's in town because we don't want, that's not what we want our town to be. So, I think, as a town and as the people who are either for or against this, it's up to us to get out there and ask people, what do you want Scituate to look like? Do you want a manufacturing plant in town, no matter what kind it is? And we have said no. We've said no to very nice businesses in town. I mean, the Shaw's Plaza right up the road we said no to. But now we're saying yes to a manufacturing and distribution plant in North Scituate. It's one thing to put it out on 3A, but to say it's okay in North Scituate, I don't know how anybody thinks that's a good idea. And that's what's going to force people to vote.
You need to look at the table of uses, and that's in a very small area, and it's only in one area in town, which happens to be down by the dump. That's the only place that can go. So you really need to look at the table of uses and where these are allowed.
I did, but I thought it said special permit, like out in Humrock and up by the tennis courts and a building behind.
No, can I remind you too that the planning board is not the only board that acts on a marijuana establishment. The Board of Selectmen has to vote on a host agreement. That's the Board of Selectmen. So it's not just 5 people deciding whether you're going to have a marijuana establishment in town. You have the selectmen who do a host agreement, and then the planning board who do a special permit. So it does take 2 boards in order to attempt to open an establishment.
Right, but by allowing special permits in various places, you are opening it up to 5 people on the planning board to say yes or no to something.
That's enough. We're done.
Point taken, thank you very much.
That's the nature of the plan.
You can't override the
Thank
selectmen. You can't override the selectmen.
No.
So you can't.
Yeah, we cannot override the selectmen. So, okay, let me take somebody from the room. Thank you.
I'm saying you're overriding the selectmen. I'm not saying you're overriding the selectmen. But if you have the authority to go from 500 to 400 feet, I mean, that's a personal thing. I mean,
There's a standard created to go there, which is
I do
what the planning board would follow.
But I do believe that the problem is the way that this zoning law is written, there are going to be people that vote no because of certain aspects in it. And then if it gets voted down, and the next thing that is on the agenda is the general bylaw lifting, the town is screwed, and the general bylaw should not have been put at the same town meeting. And that's why it wasn't voted last year when Keith Saunders brought this up, because we didn't have any zoning laws in place. This is now putting us in the same situation, of possibly having no zoning laws in place and having a general bylaw passed. There's nobody who's going to convince me otherwise.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Yes, would you like to identify yourself, please? Hi. Your name and address. Thank you.
April O'Connor, 21 Gilson Road. I was one of the petitioners.
Yes.
First of all, that's not why we pulled it. The town didn't feel that the zoning was specific enough, so they wanted to actually put their input in to make it more specific, which is why they've been taking all of our input and putting it towards what we're doing. Like, has anyone read the updated, you said 10,000 square feet. Since the last meeting, I wasn't even aware of that. We changed it to 5,000 from our input. So they are listening to us. The Catholic Church has put their input in, the police have put their input in. And changing it to 400 instead of 500, the reason why they put that clause in was to protect from being sued. And then they extra put in the 400 so that it couldn't be a little sneaky way to get around it. I mean, I feel like they're doing their best to just, follow through with what we as citizens brought forward to vote on and to protect the town and make it more specific. So I applaud you guys on all the hard work you're doing. I appreciate it. And I feel like just keep reading. It's being updated regularly. Up until the town meeting, it's going to be edited. The final one is the one you want to pay attention to.
And I want to point that every change that we do is put on the website within 48 hours. So you just need to keep checking.
And it's marked.
The website.
And the warrant will have the complete wording for each article in it. So the advisory board has to make a recommendation on the warrant, and the warrant will have the wording in it, so that every person who reads the warrant should be fully informed.
And just to finish with that, if they put a small manufacturing business, say over by the dump and where the office, the medical offices are, that wouldn't bring a lot of traffic. That would be something small. There's higher security. That brings more safety to the area wherever they put in shops and such. You can't get into a shop without an ID. Even when you go to purchase, after you get by the first, the security, then when you go to buy something, they check your ID again to match you into the system. So children aren't gonna get their hands on this unless they get it from the person that purchased it. And if you can actually track it back to the person who bought it through the, metric track and trace system. So this is actually safer. You can bring a child into a liquor store with you and they can pocket something. This is a way safer as far as, diversion goes.
Like I said, so that gets off into the track of what our job is, and I appreciate that, and I understand that. But our job, like I said, is the legal land use. And to go back to why we're doing this, is the citizens petition asked us to lift the ban, and we need a legal land use to go with that. So I'll take one more from the room, and then we'll go back to Zoom. Yes, sir.
I just have, Keith Saunders, 90 Summer Street. I just have an administrative question. What other things besides the cannabis industry would the planning board have special permit authority over?
Many things.
Many things, yes? So this is not special. The special permit is not just for cannabis.
No, it's not special.
So you folks have been engaged in this process of judging special permits your entire time on the planning board?
Yes.
So your personal votes have been recorded?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Sherry, do you want to control the board?
Yep, so we have repeat comments on the board.
Okay.
Do you want to are there first comments in the room still? These are all repeat comments.
I think that we're all set here in the room, are we all set?
Okay.
Unless somebody has something new.
I'd like to have something new to say, yes.
Okay, just one moment. I'm trying to ask Ms. Galvin to unmute herself. Ms. Galvin?
Thanks so much.
You're all set.
Apologies. I just wanted Mr. Romano to clarify for us, because I think it's misleading, some of the words that are being chosen, because municipalities most certainly can limit the number and the type of cannabis businesses that they want allowed or zoned for through general bylaw. That was the words that he wrote in the ballot question. So it's that you most certainly can ban certain types of businesses. So I'm a little confused about that guidance that you've provided to our town.
Okay, I have Mr. Romano, so I'll let him
Thanks.
respond.
He's our lawyer here. Thanks.
So, Anne Marie and to the folks in the town, unfortunately, the ballot initiative that, I'm not going to start my video. Unfortunately, the ballot initiative that we drafted is not what wound up as law. The legislature in Massachusetts did significant reworking to what the voters approved in Mass. And so, it's tough to line up, word for word saying that what we drafted. But I think ultimately the effect of what we drafted and what the legislature approved was that municipalities will have control over siting of these businesses. So I get your concern, but after discussion with town council and reasonably evaluating what's going on, you can't ban a business simply by not including it in your zoning bylaw. What would happen is, so if I wanted to cite a micro business in a town that didn't have micro business in their bylaw, I would go to the zoning enforcement officer or your building inspector or whatever it is. Different cities and towns have different mechanisms, and I'd say, hey, I'm trying to cite this business. It's largely manufacturing and industrial. Where would you like me to put this? I have a LOI on a property at 100 Main Street, whatever it is. Is this an appropriate address for this use? And I would write a letter, and some cities and towns actually have like a form that you fill out for a zoning endorsement. And then the zoning enforcement officer would say, actually, yes, this is an appropriate use of that address, or it isn't. So you don't ban something simply by leaving it out of your bylaw. all you've done is irresponsible zoning. And so, like, there isn't a process just to ban, 3 out of the 10 or whatever the number is of these uses. What they've done is by making sure that they're only in the appropriate parts of town, just being responsible. And frankly, come on, where is a 10,000 square foot industrial building in Scituate? Like, what are we talking about here? We're like arguing about nothing. That's not even a thing in Scituate. Like, where would you put that? Seriously, like, think about it. Like, where would you put that? No one's going to grow cannabis in Scituate. That's not a thing. There's no 10,000 square foot industrial building that somebody's actually, maybe there's one, but no one's going to actually do that in Scituate. Like, it's not going to happen. And finally, like, I think the HCA part is important because we talked about the host community agreement. I see Julie Nicolos, the person doesn't look like a Julie, but has some comment on my 10,000 square foot, what I said, so I would encourage them to speak up. But I think under 440.3E4, you can't even apply for a special permit unless you have a host community agreement first. So the Board of Selectmen in Scituate is the gatekeeper for any marijuana establishment, medical or adult use. So the idea that, some people who are a little more progressive thinking about cannabis, they may be on the planning board and some that aren't, 5 people get to decide where they go and when they go. That's not even, the bylaw directly contradicts that notion. It says directly that you need a host community agreement in order to apply for a special permit. The host community agreement is issued by the Board of Selectmen. They are the gatekeeper for these businesses in Scituate. So I think everybody just needs to sort of calm down a little bit. And finally, I guess I have one more little question. We're talking, I think there's a big to-do about 400 versus 500 feet. Like, I understand the prohibitionist attitude. We don't want cannabis at all. It's bad for our kids. I'm raising 3 kids on the South Shore. I get it. I don't want my kids smoking weed either. I get it. But like, would you really care about 400 versus 500 feet about a use? Like, what's your, articulable, specific, argument, based on that particular, issue? And, if somebody wants to answer or not, I don't want to get into a debate, but it's just sort of silly, right? Like, the planning board is doing their best they can to put forth a zoning, structure here so we can cite these businesses responsibly. It's up to the town to approve or deny them. They even made it so you can approve one or deny the other. So anyway, I'll be quiet now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure. Rebecca?
So, 2 questions. One, for Val, so you're telling us that if we vote this, yes on this, just so everybody understands, and then it's voted down to lift the ban, this just goes out the window basically, and we do not have to then make another stand up, someone doesn't have to stand up and get rid of it, this just goes away since we didn't lift the ban.
So I think if you're asking me, I'll answer yes. So I think, in order to be ultimately clean about it, town council was saying this is another option, but it's up to the moderator, because the moderator kind of runs town meeting. I don't know how many you've been to, but yeah, I'm sure a lot. So, but I think, but I'm not telling you, by its own terms, the zoning bylaw says that this shall have no force or effect, or whatever the language was, Patty read it, until such time as the ban is removed. It's by its own terms. It's not me telling you. It's just written right there in the language. Go to the last, like one of the last clauses they added it. It's very clear.
It's just more that I just wanted to reiterate. And then my other question is, last time someone brought up, we have it limited to 2 dispensaries. Did we limit any? I know we didn't limit the types of establishments, but did we limit how many other establishments can be?
No, and the reason for that is because every single one has to go through the board of selectmen. So, and let me tell you, I'm going to come off of Ben's comment the last time, just the free market is going to tell us how much we can afford and not afford in the town of Scituate. And this is very anecdotal. I'm going to tell you that in Abington, they approved more than 3, where 2 had been built because the free market would not support that in Abington. So that's very anecdotal, but they do not do that, Rebecca, because when we look at the uses and we look at, since we have BG zoning and we don't want to go there, we know that that's just not going to be able to live here in Situate. Now, does anybody have anything new to add to the conversation in the room? That's ours.
Okay,
Hold
are you
on,
ready?
Hold on, yes, Mr. McClay.
Can I just ask Mr. Romano again, what was the reasoning behind, when you said, oh yeah, we figured it would be smart to reduce from a potential 10,000 square foot cultivating facility down to a 5,000 square foot?
It was not Mr.
Well, I can ask Mr. Romano.
It was.
But he,
Yeah, I can answer though. I mean, the reason is because, well, the reason is because we wanted to sort of like assuage the fears of the folks that are freaked out about large scale grows in Scituate, and no one's gonna grow 5,000 square feet of canopy in Scituate anyway, or 10,000 square feet of canopy. You're gonna pay way more per square foot to grow cannabis in Scituate than you would, half an hour, 45 minutes west of here, and then even less, another 45 minutes west of there. So it's like, we were basically, in order to have a bylaw that wouldn't, if ban passes, or if lifting the ban passes or doesn't pass, whatever. I have no stake in the game. I promise you, I have no client that I'm trying to bring in Scituate. I have no financial interest in this. I just think it's fun. I said it in the last meeting, and the planning board in Scituate has been great to work with, so I'm engaged and I enjoy it. But no one's going to really grow a bunch of cannabis in Scituate. It just doesn't make any financial sense. It's not going to happen, because you can grow cannabis at a fraction of the price per square foot, like a few miles west of where we are right now. And so by giving up 10,000 to 5,000, it didn't really matter, because no one's going to do it. And plus, in order to grow 5,000 square feet of canopy, you really need a 10 or 12,000 square foot building. In order to grow 10,000 square feet of canopy, you need like a 15,000 square foot building. Where are those buildings in Scituate? I mean, tell me which 15,000 square foot industrially zoned building exists in Scituate.
well,
I don't know where, so.
it doesn't have to exist yet.
So
I mean, it's like you said before, the market would demand it. But that brings me to my second question for you. A few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, you said about the same argument for having retail in Scituate, saying, oh, nobody wants to actually retail marijuana in Scituate. So what, in your view, Mr. Romano, is the business opportunity for cannabis in Scituate?
Okay, and you can call me Val, by the way. I know you may not want to if you think I'm, a cannabis pariah, but either way, I'm Val.
No, just, it's a public meeting, so I'll call you Mr. Romano.
Okay, yeah, so I think, in Scituate, like the retail cannabis opportunity, I don't know how you want me to frame it, but like winters here are fairly slow, even successful, fairly successful ones that exist in most towns on the South Shore, as I think Anne Marie may have pointed out, or someone else, have bans. We really basically have Marshfield and Rockland that don't have bans. Marshfield has one open, Rockland has a couple open, with another one soon, and Marshfield have another one soon as well. Some are doing better than others. The ones that are doing very well, basically have no margins. They're selling it at cost just to get people in the door. So I think the Scituate cannabis business, it's 4 months a year with a trickle the rest of the time, 4 or 5 months. If I were to cite one, there's all this talk about North Scituate, somebody could finally do something with that old burned down Jamie's Pub location. Seems like a cool spot. It is kind of near that playground that Mike Westworth built, which is sort of ironic. But I think that's a good spot. Somebody could finally do something with that. Like a cannabis business would be the people who would have to deal with that septic and environmental nonsense that's going on there. But where I would put it is on the, somewhere near the waterfront. I'm not putting one. I promise you, I have no client. And if I were to take one, I probably wouldn't, because I have other, clients on the South Shore, and I have no interest in doing one in Scituate. I promise you, it's just for fun to work with the planning board, and it's my old town. So I think that the opportunity in Scituate is probably somewhere around a $2 or $3 million a year business. And when you're going to spend, 800 grand at least on, you know, on building out that facility, given all the security requirements that the Cannabis Control Commission has. You know, you're gonna have to do all of the land use and special permits. It's measured site plan approval. That's nothing that no one's mentioned really. No matter, even if you're not building the outside, I'm pretty sure that the planning board, Patricia, you know, through Karen, have said that you need to have major site plan approval. So that's more, so it's architecture, engineering. So you know, but that's probably the number that one of these businesses would do in Scituate. $2 million, something like that.
The question was what types of business, because you said before, you know, you didn't see a lot of retail opportunity, and tonight you're also saying you don't see a lot of grow or cultivation facilities.
The only businesses that would be here are retail or something with some sort of delivery, you know, like delivery part of it. So delivery is sort of a complicated issue in Massachusetts because you can cite various types of businesses and get a delivery add-on for them. But it's really, you know, no one's going to grow. I guess you could do a little product manufacturing lab here if you love Scituate. You know, you only need probably 3,000 square feet for something like that. But still, you're paying way more per square foot than you would if you just drive 45 minutes west. And so, and you'll have less sort of, you know, reefer madness folks coming out with pitchforks and torches against your business. And so, like, why wouldn't you just go there? I think the whole idea is just to say, well, Scituate is sort of a dead area from a retailer perspective. People are growing cannabis here anyway. They're driving to other towns to get it, and Scituate's not getting any of the money from it. Like, adding a dispensary anywhere in Scituate would not increase the amount of cannabis in Scituate. It's here everywhere anyway. I mean, come on. You know, everyone in this room knows somebody who's growing cannabis at their home in Scituate. Like, I have kids in the Scituate, in the now Cohasset schools, but I asked the police chief directly, what's easier to get in high school, cannabis or alcohol? He said weed, for sure. Yep. And it's because it's not taxed or regulated. It's not thoughtful. So there's cannabis here anyway. So all, you know, and you know, I think, you know, Mr. Saunders, and part of his goal with this was like, let's get Scituate's fair share of all of this. And so for me, thinking about it financially, and again, I got to repeat, I am not trying to cite a business here, but me thinking about this financially, like, it makes sense for Scituate to get, you know, a few $100 grand a year out of use that's effectively already here.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything to add to anything?
You still have some comments on the board. Would you like to go back to the board?
Are they new? I'm going to ask very specifically, are they absolutely new? And if so, we will.
Linda's saying yes, so.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Ferguson?
So I just have a question for the attorney or Val or whoever. So we keep saying that the selectmen have to approve the host agreement, so they'll approve whatever business comes to town. But if we have passed zoning laws that says we can have manufacturing and this, that, or the other thing, and we lift the ban, wouldn't the selectmen have a hard time saying no to some sort of a business that that we essentially don't want? Like you know, currently there might not be a 5,000 square foot manufacturing plant in Scituate, but there could be. Somebody could pick up some land, you know, somewhere, or buy something that's in the zoning thing and build it. So I just would be interested in knowing what the litigation thing is for that. And
I can help you, yeah.
Okay, and which one other, and then I'll get off. Since you brought up the money thing, I know that there's, and this is not necessarily part of zoning, but it is part of the decision making for this, that a lot of the, or not a lot, but several of the cannabis businesses are now saying that they're not going to pay these host agreements or whatever, or I guess it's called community impact fees, because there really wasn't any community impact. They didn't need extra police or whatever. So the amount of money that the towns are getting is dropping substantially, down to you know just the I guess the excise tax or whatever. So you know, what would you say to that? Because these host agreements are now becoming invalid.
Yep, so let's start with your first one about the HCA. So again, just take a look at the bylaw 440.3E4. That's the section that says that you need the HCA first. And so out of Salem, there's a case, went to the SJC actually, Mederi, M-E-D-E-R-I, versus the city of Salem, where Mederi actually, they were one of my clients at my last law firm, and we actually got them a special permit from the planning board in Salem. So they had a properly zoned property, they had it under agreement, they were paying on it, and we had a special permit. And Salem refused to issue the HCA, and Mederi sued and said, "Are you kidding? I got a special permit for this use. I have this property. You got to give me this HCA." And the SJC said, no, they don't. It was up to the town to decide whether to issue the HCA. You go look at the case yourself. I mean, there's some, it's definitely based on, there's some factual analysis that's included there. But basically what the SJC said was that a municipality has extreme deference on whether to issue a host community agreement. And yeah, we keep going back to the fact that I was a drafter of question 4, and that was never our intent, frankly. Like, the HCA was just supposed to be like a little bonus, or just a contract for the town for like local police, whatever. But anyway, the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts has said that an applicant or an operator, or whatever, who sued, who already even has a special permit, does not actually get an HCA, and they got denied. So with zoning and everything else in place, the Board of Selectmen in Scituate certainly have the ability to choose which applicant they want and where they want it to go, and there's really no remedy for the applicants at that point, and that's the case to do it. So you mentioned the litigation perspective, and that's it. Now, Haverhill, I think you're talking about like community impact fees, particularly out of Haverhill, Carolyn Pinot's company. She's awesome. I think part of what Haverhill did wrong, and I spent a lot of time in Haverhill. I know Mayor Fiorentini, he's an awesome guy. But I think what Haverhill did wrong was they didn't thoughtfully allocate and keep track of where HCA money is being spent. So I think, Anne Marie's always on these calls and she's very concerned about this issue. I think, Scituate Facts would be a great place to spend this kind of money, frankly. There's clearly a nexus between, the perceived harms, and so I think, that's kind of how Haverhill sort of messed that one up.
Well, there's also Lee, Gloucester, there's several towns across the state now. Haverhill is one, and you're right, they did not, quote unquote, keep track of the impacts. But there's several towns across the state now that are having to deal with this, so that they're losing their impact fee license to do that.
Yeah, but when we talk about a litigation perspective, and I guess I could spend a little more time and figure out the rest of them. I think, you have town council on the call as well, and yeah, she just raised her finger and said, "Val, be quiet," and so, yeah, please.
I was going to say, I think at the moment, everyone's entitled to ask for these community impact fees. I think as more and more establishments have opened up, the host of horribles that everyone thought was going to happen, which was the underlying basis for getting the impact fees, hasn't occurred. And so the regulated community is starting to challenge it. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few years, the legislation changed to address it. But at the moment, you can still ask for it, and you are wise to spend it in a manner that would make some sense. But that's up to the town to spend what they are. But I would not be surprised to see the 3% revenue stream dry up over time.
Right. But that's another reason to get one in now, because then you get a 5-year contract on a retailer. Or I don't think you're going to get a lot of growers in Scituate. Maybe a lab, maybe a processing, but you still, right now you get the 5-year contract on 3% off a retailer. And if Miss Amar is right, which I sort of disagree with her on this one. I think that the legislature, if you think about the reps in Massachusetts, they're very beholden to the actual citizen voters, and not just at presidential elections, and overwhelmingly folks in towns, like the people who speak up at these meetings, for the most part, are anti-cannabis, or at least wants to make sure that every town gets their money out of it. So I don't think it's going to go away in the near future, but there's also towns like Northampton has, on their own volition, said we don't need HCA money. When I cited the first one at Harvard Square, we rezoned Harvard Square for healthy farms for medical, Cambridge is like, we don't need your money. We got plenty of money.
So we need to kind of wrap this up.
Wrap it up.
I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
But thank you very much. I'm going to take one more question from the room, and I think that unless somebody has something new to say to me.
The fact that towns are opting out of community impact fees is very telling. It means that when you legalize cannabis in retail in your town, it has no discernible negative impact that they can account for.
Thank you very much. With that being said, I'm going to ask the chair to close the public hearing.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all for coming.
And let's see next week. We are going to take the public
On the 10th.
On the 10th. You come again if you like. But we will go through the warrant articles, and you will hear our individual votes and how we vote. Okay, how we vote.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's it going? Great.
Can we vote to take a 5-minute break?
What are we doing?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
There is an item on the agenda for discussion, and I asked town council to stay on the discussion part, just in case you have any questions, because I have to get a feeling of how I'm going to write your recommendations so I can give you some.
You are unmuted right now. You are unmuted. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I assume that on the 3 zoning ones for the regular, that the board wants, is probably going to vote in favor of all of those.
Yes.
So I will write positive recommendations for all of those. All right, and then there'll be 6 warrant articles right now for the marijuana. So I need to, if you have any questions for town council, now's the time to ask your questions, and I just have to get some direction to provide you some options for your reports that you'll be voting on for next time.
Because we have to provide a recommendation.
That's right.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do, Steve. Under
Do
chapter
not.
After chapter 48.
I read chapter 48. It says if you wait 21 days, you don't have to do anything.
Well, but I told you the recommendation could be that the zone, if.
I'm just saying, you're not required to make a recommendation.
Cindy, is that true?
I
Let's say
would
change chapter
advise
48.
the board to make a recommendation.
Excuse me?
I would advise the board to make a recommendation.
You're advising, it's not required.
Then you,
That's all I'm saying. Let's be clear what we're talking about here.
So, Steve, I'm going to go way out of the way here. I'm going to say something that's really personal, is you do not want your name associated with a marijuana victim. Is that what I'm saying?
I am not bringing this forward and recommending it to town.
Okay, all right.
I am not going to do that. And
Okay.
if whatever this recommendation says, we're recommending it, I'm not doing it.
Okay, and that's what we need to.
And I don't think we need to write it that way. And I actually provided Karen some write-up where I thought we could do it a different way.
But that was a report without a recommendation.
Cindy?
No, it recommends that the town make their own decision. We don't have to say the board is recommending.
And I provided you with some verbiage too that said, if the town chooses to lift the ban, then it's just a small statement. Then the zoning that we have proposed is what we would recommend. And that's not actually really saying anything.
Right. All I'm saying is I'm not supporting, you may all want to do that, and I understand that. I am not supporting going down floor saying the planning board is in any way, shape, or form pushing this decision, particularly for the decision to be perceived as you should lift the ban. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not in favor of that.
So so the question is, so we're not talking about recommendations, we're talking about sponsoring right now, so we need so.
Well, no, recommendations sounds like a sponsor.
May I interrupt because Cindy is trying to speak
Oh, sorry.
to,
You do not have to have a unanimous vote on the recommendation.
I agree.
And we won't.
And every one of you can get up at town meeting and say you are speaking as an individual, not as a planning board member, and say whatever your position is. And you will be recognized like any other citizen by the moderator, and you can speak your piece, as long as you are saying you are speaking on your own. In terms of the zoning bylaw itself, the original citizen petition was to lift the ban for all establishments. Given that that's what you were charged with doing, you put together a bylaw that you believe or don't believe, or most of you believe, is the best zoning for the town in that circumstance, if the town decides they want to have marijuana allowed in Scituate, okay? We've spoken with the AG, we've spoken with the Cannabis Control Commission. You cannot limit the uses to only certain types of uses without a ballot question. If you do limit them, which is what your original proposal had done, the Attorney General could strike that portion of the bylaw and leave the rest intact, or they could strike the entire thing, and we could not get a clear answer about what they would do. So by putting them all in, you are protected that if the town votes to adopt marijuana, you will have put establishments where the board feels they would be most appropriately located. And the reality of the situation is, most of them, you're not going to be getting a flood of people for all these uses, for all of the reasons that everyone's heard. But just to be perfectly clear, the law does not allow you to pick and choose among establishments without going to a ballot question. And the original citizen petition was for all or none. And that's why you're here. Now, the board does not have to recommend that you lift the ban or not lift the ban. The board can say, we believe this is the best zoning if the town decides to lift the ban. You can say it as benignly as you are not supporting for or against, but you are recommending that if you vote yes, this is the best course of action in the planning board opinion from a land use perspective. And you still have, just like in anything that's a special permit, if a particular one comes up and the particular site is not good for what is proposed, you don't get a special permit. So I just wanted to clarify that that's the backdrop of this, and that the fact that the board is proposing zoning is only saying that if we're going to have this, this is what we believe to be the most sensible way to implement it. And you do not have to have a unanimous vote of the board.
Yeah, well, you never really have to have that, right? I understand that. So let me ask you this question. This is the one that I'm still struggling with. Is the most likely event here is that the zoning passes and the ban stays in place. That's my assessment of it. And so if we end up in that situation, even with the language you put here, are we still in jeopardy of illusory zoning?
As written, I think that that language substantially decreases anyone's likelihood of challenging it, okay? The question is, I would advocate that if that was the case, that you also reconsider, because you put in belt and suspenders in your zoning, but the AG has a but it's so they don't like to see inconsistency. They do allow you to put in when things can take an effect and certain limitations. So, in my opinion, I think the belt and suspenders language in your zoning is good. But I'm not the Attorney General office, so just to make triple sure that if the zoning passes and for some reason the ban doesn't get lifted, that someone move to reconsider and see what the vote does. There's no guarantees on any of this, but I believe this board has thoughtfully looked at the land use implications of whether or not marijuana is coming to Scituate, where it would go, and how it should go. And that's...
I'm not debating that. I think there's been a lot of work done here to get to something that's at least, protects the town, right? So it's really about kind of in what order do you do this, right? It's sort of like you put all the furniture out and then you build a house around it. That's kind of what we're doing. Why wouldn't you vote to make a decision on the ban first?
Because if you vote the ban first and the ban lifts and for some reason the zoning doesn't pass, then you have no protection.
Because my point is you vote for it all at once. You do it at the same time. Because then it's a yay or nay vote.
Isn't there a 2/3 and majority?
Yeah, what is a 2/3 vote and what is a majority
Right,
vote,
that's why I
right?
can't put them together.
No, wait a minute.
No, that's not true.
You have the
Zoning
zoning
is a
ban, that's a
2/3
2/3 vote.
Right.
And then you have the
The
general.
general
ban,
is
that's
a majority vote.
And what is the,
The zoning bylaw is a 2/3 vote too.
okay, all right, gotcha.
Correct.
Can I ask a question in regards to this zoning bylaw? Could you put language in, just for more protection, saying something to the effect of, this would be our zoning bylaw if the ban ever did get lifted? So let's just say in September, we get a bunch of sneaky people that come in and try to lift the ban, would this just automatically
I
go
think
in?
that's what she tried to do. This language.
It goes away.
This says it's out. This says, maybe.
No, it says if somebody, I think that's what you're trying to do here, right? If these bylaws are lifted,
Then that goes in.
then this is viable, right?
Now.
My concern is whether this language is something, that really does protect us or not.
Yeah,
And
Steve,
it
I don't
seems
know, it's kind of a catch-22 because it is, and I think that, as the town council said, I think we're trying to cover ourselves as much as possible with the applicability, number 3, no marijuana
No, I
establishment,
get,
which shall
I
be
get
cited.
that. I get that.
But, yeah, it's tough.
It just, what I don't get is why we can't put them both together and just make one vote.
Oh, because the different vote threshold levels.
No, we're doing 2/3.
Well, they're different.
2/3 for zoning,
They
and
are
I think
different
majority.
questions.
No, the ban is 2/3 also.
Sorry, go ahead, Cindy, sorry.
They're different questions. Even if it was under one article, you would have 2 motions because they're separate. They're separate questions. You're deleting,
No, can't you file a document?
If you want,
I guess that's what I'm saying. Can't you file this document that has 2 more sections or whatever they are listed here that are struck?
what, delete section, whatever the zoning ban is?
Yeah. And that's what you're voting on, to accept that or not.
It's not recommended to do it that way. It's recommended because they are separate and people may just be absolutely against having the ban lifted regardless of any zoning. And it's just not recommended to do that way because they are actually 2 separate things. You can try to see if Jim will allow you to do that. You can try to see, you still have a separate question on the general bylaw. You cannot put that one in. That cannot get rolled into your zoning.
And when is that one on the ballot?
That's after the zoning. Zoning comes first and then general bylaws. It's the same order that I gave you last time.
So you could put these two together and then do the last one last. So you've already made your decision.
I made a decision based on what
I'm
town.
not talking to you personally. The town would have already made a decision on the ban.
No,
You would have
no. You have two bans. You have a zoning ban and a general bylaw ban. Both of those bans need to be lifted in order to have marijuana go forward in Scituate. And you cannot roll the general bylaw into a zoning bylaw discussion for both.
And we don't have to do a report to town meeting on the general bylaw either.
No, you don't. You don't have anything to do with the general bylaw.
That's bylaw review, isn't it?
But I mean, we're the ones who are sponsoring the general bylaw removal.
Because it's consistent
Because
with
it's
the
consistent,
approach.
right.
All right, do you want to take a straw poll, just to see?
About what?
About where we're all sort of falling in
But
this?
what's the straw poll on? That's what I'm
I
saying.
think there's a couple things that, I mean, first of all, there's one article for medical marijuana. I mean, does everybody like the language in, we're replacing the existing medical marijuana dispensary with medical marijuana treatment centers because there's new language from the Cannabis Control Commission to change the terminology, and it takes out, our bylaw right now calls the Department of Public Health, and the Department of Public Health is no longer involved in this. It's the Cannabis Control Commission. So there would be one report to town meeting on that.
So that's administerial.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with,
No, it's zoning.
It's zoning.
but it's, the only reason it's
not
zoning.
related to
language,
adult
yeah.
use establishment.
It's ministerial zoning basically because the names have changed. That's-
Right. So can I assume that most people are going to support that?
Yeah.
Okay, then,
Well, I said I would.
You wouldn't.
No, I said I would. I don't want to speak for anybody else.
Steve supports it, I support it, so you want to know. That's just, she just wants to know how you feel about medical marijuana, which is already legal.
then the way that I've written it right now, based on the advice of town council, is to have an article for recreational marijuana, to have this zoning that we propose.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that, none at all.
Then I have a separate article to remove the ban. And then I have a separate article to take away the temporary moratorium, because that language is obsolete. There's a separate article for the excise tax, and there's a separate article for the general bylaw.
People are going to be completely confused on this. No doubt about it.
That's Mr. Toomey's job.
Yep. So I have no problem with lifting the ban. I mean, I don't. I mean, if you do, that's fine. It's just, it is what it is.
So the question becomes, I mean, I think a simple report to town meeting, you know, and I don't have the exact language in front of me, but it's, you know, you support to, this is the zoning you recommend, should the ban be lifted. This is the zoning you recommend if the ban be lifted, you know, basically repeated twice under the zoning article and the ban article.
So how are you going to position that though? Because
That-
how are you going to position that when you present it? So let's say that's what you want to do, right? And then you present that and it says, if the ban is listed, this is the zone, right? So what do you, I think the lady who's here sort of put it pretty succinctly, right? So if you are afraid the ban is going to be lifted, you must vote for the zone. And you have no idea what the actual answer is going to be on whether the ban's lifted or not. So it really, you're sort of positioning people to say, you should vote for this because you're protecting against what will happen if you're trying to keep the ban in place. And then, of course, if you want to remove the ban, you need to have zoning in place as well.
Or you could assume the risk and say, we don't like the zoning bylaw, so I'm going to vote no on the zoning bylaw, and no, I don't want to lift the ban, so, you know.
I mean, the individual can. I'm saying, what is the planning board going to present? What are you suggesting we present?
Just what I said. Just what I said. You
The
know,
legal
this
ban
is,
is if the ban is lifted.
this is the recommended zoning if the ban is lifted. That's,
Doesn't necessarily mean we have to like it personally, but this is what we're presenting to town meeting for people to vote on. So that's where the.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do.
Confused why not vote on the ban first.
Well, we're not going to do that, I don't think. All right, Cindy?
The other thing we could potentially do is we could ask Jim if he would let you put them together. I don't think he will. And we can ask him if he would make it be 2 motions. I think he will. I mean, if Jim is willing to, it's his show. Let you roll them together. They're separate questions and they've always come up as separate votes. But if we want to reach out to Jim and Jim says he's okay with it.
Yeah, the reason I don't think they're necessarily separate questions is because if you're in the room making the decision to lift the ban or not to lift the ban, you're making the decision based on what would go in place of the ban if you lifted it. So you have to consider that at the same time. And the way we're doing it is we're saying, consider that first. Consider, if you will, that the ban has been lifted. You should vote for this zoning. And then go and decide whether to lift the ban or not.
That's the way the AG suggested it's been done. That's the way other cities and towns have done it. And that's the way most zoning, when you have unrelated to marijuana, when you have a prohibition on something and you're allowing something, is you put the protection in first and then lift what needs to get taken out to have it take effect. And you do have the saving language in there that should protect you. And realistically, people are going to make up their mind they do or don't want to have marijuana establishments. And, you don't usually see one vote go one way and its companion go the other way. You don't see that happen.
But yeah, that's kind of.
What that means is that if you want cannabis use in your town, you're allowed to vote to change the zoning. If you do not want cannabis in your town, you're not there. But people don't realize that's the zoning issue.
So, until this meeting, I have been talking to people and saying, we are trying to put zoning in place in case it ever got lifted, whether it gets, so I was gonna go yes on this. Like, I don't want the other one, or whatever, I can make a decision on, but I thought, oh, we gotta get this in place in case, whether it's lifted now or 2 years from now, we get the zoning in place. But now everyone's saying we can get sued if we get the zoning in place, which I had not heard until tonight. So somehow I missed that one.
Well, I think that was the conversation that you had with the Attorney General's office. Isn't that right, Cindy?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have inconsistent zoning, I mean, the very first thing on the AG's office was, why would they ever do that? Because it just doesn't make sense for people to do that.
Yeah, it's the shock and awe from the attorney general, like, who would even consider that? Like, why would you do that?
I've got one more question.
But inconsistent zoning, like we have a zoning
Yeah, why would
a
you?
zoning law in
Yeah.
place, but we keep the ban? Or-
Yeah, I think it's,
Can I ask you this? If we lift if they vote no to lift the ban on zoning, we did that first. Let's just say they vote no on that.
no, we.
So we still have a ban.
I would have asked the Attorney General, well,
They're
why don't you
gonna
answer the
definitely
question?
leave the ban.
Instead of like,
Then
you
the
know,
next, the general bylaw, there's no way that's gonna pass, right?
Right.
Right. So could you do lift the ban?
All right.
No, she's not she's recommending put the protection in place
Yep.
and then remove the ban.
The concern is not that if the ban does not get lifted. The concern is if the ban does get lifted. That's the concern. That's the whole point of having the zoning bylaw.
No, I know that's the point of the bylaw. The
And on the other
concern
hand, if the zoning bylaw gets shot down, right? There's no way the ban's gonna not get shut down.
That's right. So, there you go.
I mean, that the ban would stay in place.
Yeah,
Right.
Right. Okay.
And-
There's no way 2/3 of the town is gonna say no to the zoning and say, yep, bring it in free for all.
That just doesn't make sense.
No, but
So the
it's
people
quite
that
possible
want to
that.
stop marijuana are gonna stop it at the zoning level. They're gonna stop it at the zoning level first, at the zoning bylaw that you've crafted. Because if that doesn't pass, it would really be one bizarre town meeting for the ban to get lifted.
It would be.
well, like you said,
One that I
Rebecca, they've
really
been telling
can't
people we
foresee
should put the
happening.
protection in place. Like, so,
Well,
all right.
it's a
And you've
crapshoot.
got the same group of people sitting there.
Yeah.
And that's not the town that was sitting there tonight. But they'll be there.
You know, I mean,
Well,
I have no idea whether this is gonna pass or fall on its face. I really have no idea what the temperature is in Situate on this issue.
I told you, my conversation with Everett Galvin was, everybody I know is gonna vote against it, and I told everybody I know is gonna vote for it. So obviously, we don't peg up the same kind of people. I mean,
There you
that's,
go.
so that, and as you know, a town meeting is all about getting butts and seats, that's all it's about, depends on who gets the campaign
And gets
together,
the vote.
that's what it comes down to.
Right.
And for every, so you saw it on Broad Street, you saw it on the Ellis Estate, you saw it on the Senior Center. Three very big issues that right before town meeting, they got people behind them, and they messed them,
And then they leave.
and then they leave.
And then they leave.
All right,
But
so
that's why
then,
the articles go back to back.
That's right.
so then what I will do is I will draft some drafts and send them out
Okay.
for people to reply individually
Yes. Okay.
to me, and I will at the same time copy town council so that we're all trying to work together to get something for an intelligent discussion on March 10th.
Because the other thing to remember is that contrary to what the citizens petition thinks, that petition is dead. It was dead the day after town meeting. That's dead. So nobody has the right to stand up at town meeting and say, that's my petition, and I'm gonna put that forward. They have to wait 2 years. So we know that.
No, they withdrew.
They withdrew.
withdrew,
That's
so they don't
different.
have to
They don't
wait.
have, they can,
So
they
they
can
can
still
come back, but it's not their petition anymore.
No.
So,
Okay.
But
Can I make
it's
a
only
further
been presented
suggestion?
because we're following up
yes, because we
on
were
a
told to.
commitment the town made, right?
Yeah, we made the,
What,
Yes, it's
not
Cindy,
our
did you have a question?
I was just going to say, when Karen circulates everything, I think it might be worth including Jim Toomey in at this point, just to give him a heads up of what's coming down the pike, and maybe he has some insights that might help everybody.
Well, he's looking forward to this. I've heard it's gonna be
I
fun.
know, he's going to have fun.
So can you send me his email address, and then I will copy him as well?
Yes,
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, are we all set here tonight? People, you did a great job.
Listen, I meant to tell you that I listened to the Board of Selectmen, and apparently we're supposed to read a commitment statement before every meeting. You know anything about this?
No.
Oh, yeah.
A commitment to what?
But I want to read it to you. It says the Scituate Planning Board is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and, I can't even say this word, minoritized communities to feel welcome and respected. We ask our community members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. That was voted unanimously by the Board of Selectmen on December 21st, 2021, and apparently we're supposed to read this before every meeting.
I never heard of that.
So I said to Lorraine, minoritized is a very nasty word. It means that you push to the absolute limits of any kind of legal recourse. But she told me that's what you're supposed to say.
Have you heard it at a selectmen's meeting?
I did.
When?
Last week. I asked Lorraine to send me the language. I said, what is this? We don't know anything about this. And she said, oh, everybody has to read this before every board. I said, I didn't know about that. Says the board, so I don't know.
What's wrong with this language? Oh.
Wouldn't it be marginalized, not minoritized?
Well, that's, yeah. That's a very negative.
You think we could adjourn? You think we could adjourn?
Thank you for reading the statement.
Right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're off. All right. Who wrote that?
Wait a minute, you're not off yet.
Oh, what?
Have fun.
We
Shelley,
need
have a nice ski.
We need Seth to turn off Facebook. Just one moment.
Yep, everyone have a good night, okay?
Thank you.
Bye.